in South Africa, it would seem that whoever funds you depends or determines how rude or how you come across. What we begin to realize is when Elon Musk applied to say, I want to give internet to South Africa so that every rural area has internet, he was told that, Baba Elon, 30% BE. People said, if you don't give us this 30%, you're not going to get this internet. And they even went as far as saying, let him line up at ICASA like everybody else and apply,
Yeah. Are you saying you're going to ban porn?
Of course, yeah. Pornography will be banned.
What else are you going to ban?
HIV, GBV. I mean, these cases alone. Pornography reduces these cases. Anybody who's saying keep pornography, you're basically saying GBV, rape, HIV, STDs. You're basically saying let them continue. I'm doing this podcast with you, and everybody who's watching the podcast, please make sure you share this, because we don't have money to go on SABC, but you can share it with 20 people, 30 people, 100 people, and this podcast can go viral. So let's ensure that every single person click. While I am talking, don't just listen. Click on the share button and share it. Let's make sure that this goes viral.
King David Studio Podcast.
I'm with Mpho Dagada in the studio of Arise South Africa. Otiak, are you well?
I'm well, thank you. And thank you so much for hosting me today.
I appreciate you coming because I'm confused. Rise Mzansi, Arise South Africa. Surely it's not the first time this question comes to you.
It's not. And I think for us, it's been a very irritating question. I'll explain why. We registered first. So we registered as a political party first. And when they tried to register as Rise Mzansi, we refuted. We wrote to the IEC and said, this will confuse the voters. And the IEC said, we'll hear you. And what happened was later on, the IEC then said, no, we accepted them. And I went to the IEC and I said, I rejected this and I gave reasons. Why would you then accept it? We went to sit with the CEO and he said that, you know what, we felt that we were going to do so. And if you want to take the matter further, you need to go to the courts. And as a new political party, we are not funded by the white monopoly capital or unlimited amounts of money, Yeah. So we said, you know what, we wouldn't be able to start it already. We're going to court. So we left it. Yeah. But now we see, the ANC taking MK to court and we're now saying, hey,
same matter.
If we, But for us, where this stands is that we registered first and, we actually met with them and we informed them to say, and when we met with them, they said, no, they're just an NGO. At that time, they said they were just an NGO.
Really?
So we were quite surprised when we saw them register as a political party. But I just said to people that what's important is that people get to understand what we stand for and what we're doing. And we try and clarify the confusion to as many people as possible.
So you feel what they did was wrong because they misrepresented themselves in the beginning to you? Or maybe at the time they were NGO and they moved.
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Look, I think what they did is definitely wrong. One of the issues that I've always had is in South Africa, it would seem that whoever funds you depends or determines how rude or how you come across, So when we went to them, we went with them, with much humility to say, look, we're a registered political party and we're hearing that there's a name around here. And when we went to them, they said, no, we're an NGO, we're just donating, we're just cleaning the township, They said, we haven't yet decided, etc., etc.
Oh, no.
So for us, it was a thing of, okay, this is interesting. But what do we then do? So after we found out that they also registered, we wrote to the IEC. We informed the IEC. Unfortunately, we didn't have the millions that they've got, that they were given by the Oppenheimers to be able to go to court, etc.
Yeah.
So we said, when these sort of things happen, there's no use in us, trying to play the blame game or play the victim. We just move on, we share our vision, and we hope that South Africans will listen to us and South Africans would be able to vote for us.
Are you running for this coming election?
Yes, so we're running for this coming election, and we're actually running for both the provincial and national elections.
So if you win, you're president?
Definitely, yeah. And that's the goal.
Yes.
That's the goal, The median age in our country is very young, very, very young. I'm actually older than the median age, and the median age is basically the average age in our country. Yeah. So our country is supposed to have the youth leading. Where the world is going, things are moving too fast for the elderly. And when I say elderly, I need to explain, science teaches us that your thinking capacity and expectation capacity at the age of 60, it diminishes. That's why corporates say go on pension. So what we're finding in South Africa is that these are politicians trying to defy science, to say at 60 years old, at 70 years old, at 80 years old, they want to be solving problems that future generations will have to deal with at such ages. It's either the corporates are wrong, all corporates should be hiring 80-year-olds, or it's either they're taking advantage of the fact that the voters don't know this. And for me, it's shocking when you look at party lists and you see these ages. You begin to realize that we need to understand that if you're not going to be putting somebody who's 80 years old as a CEO of a company, if you're not going to be putting them in charge of your money, why would you think they'd fix the water? Why would you think they'd fix the electricity? Why would you think they'd fix the education problem? Why would you even think that if science says that they should be going on pension, you are thinking otherwise? And the way that I see it is that these people should be advisors. Once you hit 60 in government, go the advisory route. We can pay you a fee to advise. But what we've learned and realized throughout the ages is that they are too old to implement. And our country has so much that it can implement, but the people that are at leadership are too old to implement. I'll give you an example, Starlink. Starlink is owned by Elon Musk. It's an internet company. Basically, they give internet from the sky. You know,
with these floating
satellites. I'm trying not to overcomplicate it. I've been accused of people saying that when they listen to my interviews, they need a dictionary and they need to be.
There's a lot more satellites in the sky now than ever before. And largely because of Elon Musk.
And they're in different places. They're in different places. Some of them are going to different places. So it's a whole other world. But to simplify it to our viewers, Elon Musk is saying, I can give internet to South Africa from the sky, and the remote areas, the rural areas where there's no internet, will get internet. I come from Machabawe in Venda. Machabawe reached the network. Rito Gonyataba. What that means is that we had to go up a mountain to get the network, you know. And although now things are much more different, but there's different areas in South Africa where education is poor. You find that the same school, year after year, their results are bad. Mathematics, kids are failing. And when you look at those diagnostics, you realize that, okay, the teacher who's teaching this mathematics, he learned from the apartheid government Bantu education. He doesn't quite understand these new things that are happening. If you had a screen with internet, the same way viewers are watching us at home, and you've got a person teaching mathematics in that home person's language on a screen, the students would be able to pass mathematics. And what we begin to realize is when Elon Musk applied to say, I want to give internet to South Africa so that every rural area has internet, he was told that, Baba Elon, 30% BE. People said, if you don't give us this 30%, you're not going to get this internet. And they even went as far as saying, let him line up at ICASA like everybody else and apply, you know. These are 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that are going to pension, that are soon going to pass away. You've got a young kid growing up in a rural area. He'll never understand where the world is going because the education he keeps getting is poor, and he thinks that 30% will help him achieve things in the world. And this kid is being held back because the person making the decision is already 70 years old. Already they're going to pension. They won't even be there when that kid grows up to answer to those issues. But I will be there. And the reason why I'm saying to say we need to ensure that we are moving in with the times even in governance is because we see that having these pensioners there is costing us. The decisions they make, the speed at which they move in is too slow for where the world is going. And we will continue to have this unemployment issue as long as we've got pensioners that are leading us.
I can't help bring up the Panyaza boards in Gauteng as a way to say, well, there's some provinces that are moving in that direction. Or am I correct in acknowledging that Panyaza has done that in this province to bring these boards and these digital boards to these classrooms? So basically saying, as much as there's a lot of old people, there are some that are moving in the right direction within the same, let's say, political party, political formation.
Look, let me maybe give you context, right? So when I was still in high school, there was a program called an exchange program where we were able to go study same schooling, but in other countries. So I remember I applied for exchange and I was granted. I was doing quite well in school. So, and I went to the other country. I went to Canada, right? When I got to Canada, I arrived with my textbook. I mean, this is a couple of years back while I was still in high school. I arrived with my textbooks. I arrived with my calculator, right? This is 2010, those days, right? So we could say 14 years ago, maybe? Yeah. And when I took out my calculator, this is in Canada, the whole class turned around and looked at me. And I'm an African child. I'm taking out my calculator with pride to say, look, when it comes to maths, I know my maths, you know. And as I do this, they're all looking at me. And I'm looking back thinking, how? What's going on? You know, in my mind, I'm thinking, what are they looking at? You know. And the maths teacher comes in and says, right, we're doing algebra, and they all take out their laptops. They're called ThinkPads, right?
Yeah.
And I remember at that time when I was crunching in to do my mathematics, they were already finishing what we were supposed to do. And I realized to say, okay, our education in Africa is already behind. Already by natural means, even a good school in South Africa, you're already behind global standards. And when I processed this, I began to understand that the reason we are behind is because the people that are in leadership in these schools, in government most importantly, are also behind. They are still thinking in a backward way because that's the way that they were taught to think.
Gotcha.
You have this new generation of children that, you know, I always say that Nelson Mandela fought so that I can go to university. I went to UJ, you know, and I have that to thank to say that that's what they did. But the reason that we're fighting is so that we can learn these things and fix the issues that exist. And I've often found that even in our education system, I mean, we've got an education minister who is a pensioner. It's no secret. In our education
She'll
system...
probably be retiring this year, but we'll see.
We hope and we pray and we ask and we beg. But you've got people that simply will not understand it. And as much as I did see the pilot that Panyaza did with the smart boards, and I saw people stole them and all those issues, the big issue that comes is that it's a systematic thing. You can't have one individual try and fix something. We need to fix it at a national level. And that's why some of us are appealing to people to say, let's ensure that come this year, when we look at our parliament, it's not an old age home.
You have the average age of parliament is 60.
Yes.
Give or take.
Shocking.
But it was worse. Look, thanks to Julius and EFF, the average age has gotten lower. And because they brought in a lot of young people.
So what I'm saying, and I think this is important for people to realize, is that a lot of times we were told that people said, we have issues trusting the new generation. People said to us to say, hey, we're voting for Nelson Mandela's party because we have issues, you know. And when they looked at, for example, the EFF, some of the issues that people have raised with us is to say, we don't hear the intellectualism, we are seeing the fighting, you know. And a lot of them said, why are the children that we took to university, why are they not coming out and participating in politics? And we had that clarion call to say, let's go out and participate. And you look at the leadership of Arise, you look at the members that we've got. These are young lawyers, young doctors, young professionals, right? And also the old are also there to guide us and lead us in the way. But what I'm getting to is the fact that we're never going to catch up or fix the issues that we've got if we're using thinking that was developed or created or educated in pre-1994. The world has changed so much that we need new thinkers that are relevant to what is going on today. And that's the big thing that we've got to say. We are not saying as Arise South Africa that, you know, we are against the elderly. No, in fact, we want to increase the grants for them. In fact, we want them to raise their children. We want them to raise their grandchildren, you know. What we're basically saying is that we need Parliament to be 70%, if not 80%, young people that are forward thinking.
What is young for you? Is it, because one can say I'm 40, I'm still young, because we've created something as a society, and it said 35 is young. But one can say, I'm 40, I'm still young. So what is young in your perspective? Is it the young that we've all agreed upon?
I think I like your question. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've also been trying to understand what does young mean in today's day and age. And maybe let me switch it up and say, what are the young people, or what have they said to us when we reach the ground? And a lot of times, a lot of them talk about the fourth industrial revolution. They don't necessarily know how to pinpoint it, but they are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. A lot of them will say to us that we're not going to watch SABC. We're watching Showmax, Netflix, YouTube. We're watching these things. A lot of them will say, I don't want a job where I won't be able to have a work OS on my phone or a work OS on my laptop. So a lot of them reference the fourth industrial revolution. Some of them are saying blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Some of them are saying, you know what, we want to be gamers. Some of them are saying, you know what, we want to be doing AI. Some of them are saying machine learning. Some of them are saying robotics. Some of them are saying quantum computing, you know. So I've come to evolve this word young to say, let young rather be exchanged with relevant for the fourth industrial revolution.
Okay.
And maybe let me explain why, because that's important. There was a research study that shows that Microsoft, Nvidia, the biggest companies in the world, are all pouring their money into AI. And I called a few people and I said, South African companies, are you putting money into AI? And many of them said, putting money where?
What?
You know what are you
talking
asking,
about?
you know?
Yes.
And I stopped asking because I said, okay, it's getting too complicated to ask, you know? But the world is moving its wealth to the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution. And the danger is if our wealth is not there, our wealth is diminishing. We are becoming poorer and poorer and poorer. Why? Because we are not moving with where the rest of the world is putting their money to. And I can give you classic examples. I always say to people that Bitcoin was something that I learned while I was still in university. I bought my first Bitcoin for 200 Rand. While still in the University of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Today, one Bitcoin is over R1 million. You look at where wealth is moving. You look at the market cap of AI, the market cap of blockchain, the market cap of YouTube even. You look at where all these things are moving and you realize to say, if we're not going to move with the times, we're going to stay behind. So for me, young means these are people that are relevant and are ready for the fourth industrial revolution.
They are moving with the times.
They're moving with the times.
Can a 35-year-old run a country, run South Africa?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I always say to people that one of the most inspiring things that I've ever done is I had the opportunity to go and study in Stanford University in Silicon Valley. And when we got to Silicon Valley, people were excited to see the chaplain. Some were excited to see the main hall. I said to the tour guide, I said, I just want to go and see where Mark Zuckerberg made Facebook. And this guy looked at me and said, there are so many activities, this African kid, you know. And I said, I just want to see the room, you know. And he said, okay. And he walked me over to the dormitory room. And I saw the room. And when I looked at the room, I said, there's a bed, there's internet connection, and there was a little cupboard shelf there. And I said, no, man, you are lying to me. There has to be more. And he said, this is it.
There has to be some machine.
Yeah, I said, no, we have this in Africa. Show me something else, you know. And he said, that's it. And for me, it opened up my eyes to say the biggest companies in the world, Facebook, your Amazons, your Googles, all these open AI today, all these companies that everybody is wanting to work for and that own a lot of money and that control the world, they were made by young people, very young people. And I remember I had a conversation with my pastor and I said, Pastor, there's something that I don't understand. Why is it that young people are able to do amazing things, but the elderly are not? And he said, it's scriptural. He opened up the Bible to me and he said, the Bible shows you that young people are the relevant for leadership. And he showed me, he started off with David. He said, David was a young shepherd boy. He said, that man, in his track record, he led better than everybody else. He went through and he said, Joseph in the Bible was a young man. He said, the man led better than, he said, Jesus, the Jesus that we all believe if you're a Christian. He said, Jesus, before 36, he was done. And he said, Mpho, there is an age that God gives you supernatural wisdom and ability to act in your life. It's your youth. And he said to me, the Bible speaks about the strength of your youth. It says, don't waste the strength of your youth. And he said to me, Africans have despised the youth and called the youth to do things they shouldn't be doing. The youth should be leading. If you look at the wisest companies, you look at the best companies today, in America, all of them are bowing before Mark Zuckerberg to say, whatever you want to create, we are there. They are bowing before AI startups to say, let's fund you. You know, in America, young people have to say no to money because they are saying, hey, you're giving us too much money now. In South Africa, young people are despised.
Why is that?
I think it must be a thinking. And for me, this is quite interesting because I said to somebody that I've come to realize that in America, in Europe, all around the world, they've come to understand the process that we must hand over to the youth. It's
baton,
legacy. Yeah,
the baton must be handed.
It's legacy thinking to say, we must hand over to the youth, you know. And I said, in South Africa, I've realized that that thinking is not there, you know. When I got involved in politics, and I always tell this story to say, when I got involved in politics, I was not funded. There was no funding. Even where Arise South Africa is today, I can't point at somebody and say, that's our funder. The most amount of money that Arise South Africa has ever received as a donation is from a pastor of Hope Restoration Ministry, Pastor Chris Matebula, who said, I can't watch you fail when it comes to actually ensuring that you register. Here's something that I can give to help you register. That's the most we've ever received. The rest we received from our members and the people that gave that money. And I said, I've been running this race and I've been crisscrossing the country and talking about the change you want to do. Patrice Motsepe, I've met him before. Quiet. Mr. Robert Gumede, quiet.
You're saying quiet as in they're not responding to your call,
not
so to speak.
Not that they're not responding, because a lot of them, they think when we're calling them, we're saying, give us money. You know, a lot of them think, hey, we're saying, no, I'm saying the call to say, where are the young leaders that you are developing? All right. And to say, how are you sitting down and watching when young leaders are trying to change things? You are just watching to say, let's wait for them to fail.
But you can understand why, right?
I can't.
Well, but if you know the funding of other political parties, you find those names in those funding.
No. You find the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers.
Yeah.
You don't find our people. You don't find black people.
You find Patrice in the ANC funding.
Very little. But also, let's talk about that, right? To say, we have this attitude of, we don't know how to build for legacy. We don't know how to build for legacy. And the issue is you are funding somebody who's 70 years old. To do what?
To keep the status quo.
How is the future generation going to do it?
To maintain things the way they are because they work for you.
So many of them, what they end up doing is they end up sending their children to London. They send their children to America. They send their children to... Because here at home, they are not developing or assisting in any way. I've said to somebody that I don't think that there's any platform where I've not been for an interview, television station where I've not spoken. None of the black billionaires in South Africa have said a single word to me. However, the white billionaires, they've knocked. They've knocked. Some of them have come to ask and say, will you stop Malema? And I said, that's not my purpose. I'm not in the business of stopping Malema. And they said, okay, we won't fund you. Some of them came and they said, what's your position on land? We want to know before we fund you. And I said, no. I don't want to deal with people that will tell me what's my position on this, on that. The black people are nowhere to be found when it comes to the legacy of how the politics system will work in our country.
The black funders.
Yes. Whereas the white funders, all the money for politics, I said to somebody the other day, I said, the most shocking thing about politics for me was that finding out that politics in our country is run by white people. Julius Malema came out and he said when he started his political party, it was a white family that gave him money to register. The ANC as well, we see the same thing. White funders, white donors as well. These other ones, Abo Rais Mzansi, Abo Hemen Mashaba, all of them funded by white monopoly capital.
Why is that? Why are white people so interested?
Before I get there, a lot of people have said to me, Mpho, do you have a problem with white people? I said, no. In fact, we've had white people that have funded us as well. I have no issues with that. My issue comes to say, if as black people, we are watching white people fund all those political parties, and we know that there's been a history of apartheid in our country where white people were put first and black people were put last. Are we expecting that overnight everything has changed, that they're going to fund these political parties so that we as black people can become first? Is that our thinking? And for me, that's where I want to open up the minds of our fellow black leaders to say, their thinking is wrong. You can't sit there and expect that all of them will continue to fund political parties and expect that the change will begin to happen.
So your answer is there, where you say white people have clear intentions of what type of country they want.
That's true.
And they play a role in trying to direct the country in the direction they want.
They do. And some of us have ever had to fight the fight of refusing that and being non-funded. You know, a lot of people have often said to me, and I always say this to people, that, look, it's seldom that I find that the political parties that are funded by white monopoly capital, it's seldom that I find that they are able to present themselves better or speak better or sit down at the table better. No. The reason why we chose to reject such funds is because we understood to say there has to be a generation that stands up and says, even without money, even if we are not funded, we will do it by scraping, by hook, by everything that we can do to ensure that we start a new generation of people that will say, I want to be like that guy. Somebody said to me recently, and I loved it. They said, you're the first politician who I've ever had an interview with who didn't say to me, by the way, you're not allowed to mention this, and this, you know? And I said, I didn't know that politicians say that. And they said, no, politicians, when they come in, they brief us. Even their teams will say, if you're going to talk about this, they're not allowed to say it. And I said, when I go out to talk, I'm representing the views of Arise South Africa. There's no funder I have to think about. I don't have to second guess myself to say, when I'm done with that interview, what if this funder? No. And for us to fight for the country, we need to realize that we must start funding our own political movements.
What is an ideal scenario? You're dealing with a poor black South African who wants a country that they've painted. It's very clear in their minds, and it's not a complicated country. It's a country of very basic solutions. And this black South African finds themselves being used by those that are able to fund political parties. So then we end up with a scenario where the vote is polarized. It's spread across throughout the country. Some would say the arrival of Rise Mzansi, and all these others is a further worsening of this polarization of a vote, where it's not concentrated and it's clear that this is the direction we're going. What do you say to that, to the spread of this vote, and nobody really wins? We end up with a Tshwane that is complicated, a Kuruleni that is complicated, a city of Durban that is complicated, and so forth and so forth. What do you say to that?
Look, I think that there's something that a lot of people are not realizing, and I hate that I'll have to use this example because I don't want people to backlash me on social media and say that, look at what he's saying, you know. But I have to be honest about this. Israel today has the whole world up on arms. They are deploying weapons. People were even saying, go to Haibo, this fight is no longer fair because the whole world knows that Israel is powerful and they're able to do this and do that and do this. That's a coalition government. Israel is a coalition government. It is not a government of one party has won. It's a coalition government. Yet they are so powerful that they are able to, in somewhat other people say, destroy other states, bully other states, people have put it, or rather others are saying they're protecting themselves. I don't want to get involved in that debate. I want to get involved in the fact that coalition governments can work. And I'll explain why they can work.
Okay.
When companies first began, and the reason why boards were put into place, is because people realized that CEOs were a problem. There were lots of issues where people realized that just to have one man calling all the shots is very problematic. And all companies around the world said, we are going to have a board of directors who will hold the CEO and the leadership accountable. The CEO and the leadership will do the work. They report the work to the board. Ever since that has happened, we've seen governance change. Why? Because there's an oversight and there are people that are watching you do something. We need a government where we will watch everything. where you can't do anything without somebody else watching you. This is what we're calling coalition, where you've got your 20%, the other one has got 30%, the other one has got 40%, and we are watching each other like hawks to the point where not even a single cent will be able to be stolen because they are watching you. And that's what we need in our country. So what we've got is a very immature coalition where you still have other parties that have more power than others. And the problem with that is that we're not seeing a mature coalition. We're seeing very immature, very startup-like coalitions. Wait until we see a coalition of government where anybody is able to stand up and check the other, where no one has more power over the other. You have a board. So that means that South Africa has a board. When we vote, how does a board vote? The board members must vote. When you have a proposition, bring it to the board. You come to the board and you present it. The board says, we're going to have the same thing with the coalition government. And what that does, accountability is increased. All the issues we suffer, because we lose 300 billion to corruption every single year. It's a known thing. The Zondo Commission cost us 1 billion. For us to figure out how are they stealing money in the country, we had to pay 1 billion. 8 million pages were written in the Zondo Commission. And I've read a lot of them, but I've not finished all those pages. So it's important that we move from this state of believing that only one person with all the power is going to be the rescuer and say, we need this board. We need a coalition government where on the board, you've got Mpho Dagada sitting there. On the board, you've got another president, you've got another president. Because absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we need that check in power. In America, Republicans and Democrats, you never get 60%. It's always, hey, 50%. Everybody must be on their toes. Everybody's presenting difficult. Why? Because where there is competition, the best get to thrive.
You're using an example of a two-party state, America, and yet you say there should be a board of multiple thinkers. We can easily say DA and ANC, good enough. You guys borrow them, and we all carry on with two parties. But now we're dealing with a huge board that we're seeing a board in Ekurhuleni. We're seeing a board in Pretoria. And the reason I raise this again is because ultimately they are coalition parties that are not working. You're saying it's immature. I agree with you. We are still learning how to do this thing. But while we are learning how to do it, life continues. And the suffering continues of our people. We are likely to have, and I don't know this, a coalition president. We don't know this. We'll see what happens. And in a scenario like that, what stops this system to produce another city of Tshwane, produce another Johannesburg, produce another mayor that came with 2% and becomes a president, so to speak?
Look, I think what's important, what a lot of people are missing out here is the fact that you can't say we have coalition already because the ANC has been running the show. You look at the board of SAA, ANC cadre deployment. Board of Petro SA, ANC cadre deployment. Board of Transnet, ANC cadre deployment. Board of Prasa, ANC cadre deployment. All of these that I'm mentioning, failed state enterprises. So that board is a board of that political party only. We can't even say it's a board of the whole of South Africa, it's a board of the ANC. And we can't call that a coalition. Okay, you talk about coalition in the municipalities, which I think is quite valid, what you're saying.
I think it's a perfect example of what could happen.
Okay, so maybe let me bring it to this point. The municipalities that everybody is saying that they're seeing all these issues, right? You're finding that municipalities themselves, in the way that the ANC used to run them, have been very dysfunctional. So a lot of these new political parties coming in are having to deal with dysfunctionality already. Unaccountability because they were only accountable to one structure. So I don't want to get involved in governance that's happening from other political parties. But what I do want to point out is we need to understand that the coalitions that we're seeing today, one, it's too early for us to assess what those repercussions are. That's the first thing. The second thing, they are at a municipality level. They are not at a national level. In other countries, coalitions that we see working are on a national level. Where we are going is a national election. So I'm saying coalitions in a national election would work for us. Why? Because national dictates everything else. Let's take SAA, for example. Somebody said to me that, what's going on in SA? And I said, I don't like the way the media explains stuff in the country because a lot of people don't understand. I like the way I explain stuff because I try to explain stuff so that even the 12, 15, and 90-year-old can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
These guys get to SAA and they say, SAA has a building worth 1.4 billion, a building.
Mm.
And they come up with a deal to buy SAA for 51 rands. Now, between you and I, if somebody has a building and the building is worth 1.4 billion, the building is standing, and you want to buy it for 51 rand, does that make sense to anybody?
No.
That's the SAA deal explained. Before we go anywhere, that's the basis of it. Yes, we know about the 3 billion that they're saying they'll only pay when they make profits.
Over time and so forth.
Yeah, we hear it. But let's bring it back to how everybody understands it in layman's terms.
Mm.
Such decisions can only be made because the ANC runs SAA. And that's why Pravin Gordhan is now resigning. Because he's realizing that, hey, I've made a blunder here. People caught me out. People spoke. People like Mpho are now speaking. Hey, let me move. You know? If we had a coalition government, people could then ask and say, as Arise South Africa, you are in the coalition. Why did you keep quiet? As this other political party, why did you keep quiet? Then we can answer and say, no, this is what happened or that's what. But right now it's the ANC because they are the majority. They run everything there. So a lot of the times what I'm advocating for is to say we need watchmen that will watch each other. Because we're having a problem of everybody is stealing to the point where you need somebody to come in and watch the other so that we stop the stealing. And once we stop the stealing, we'll realize that the budget is enough for many of these things.
I keep going to municipalities deliberately, and you'll bear with me because that's the only experience we have of coalition governments. And if you put 10 people around the table to speak about their experience, because the cold face of South Africa is municipality. We get water through municipality and many other services. And if you were to put 10 people around the table who live in a coalition government setup, they'll tell you that, look, I don't know. We don't know who to point at when things are bad. We know the mayor is this guy, but we know inside his cabinet, so to speak, you find all these MEICO, as it's called. You find all these other people. It's the only experience we have of coalition government. And you're saying to me, it's going to work. It can work. I guess the only thing we can say as South Africans is we'll wait and see. There's nothing else.
Look, I think, so maybe let me give you another practical example. National government had to put in water in Giyani, Department of Water and Sanitation. The tender was 90 million rand. This was the time when Vula Mokonyane was the Minister of Water.
Yeah.
That tender was issued to say, go and do a water project there, boreholes, etc., pipes, everything. 90 million rand. They come back and they're like, we're going to use this to loot. The tender moves from 90 million rand to today, 4 billion rand. No oversight. The guys are saying, independent researchers are saying that these guys had no oversight. You can't, as those departments in those specific areas, authorize such budgets. No accountability. Till today, people in Guyana still don't have water. 4 billion rand was paid at a national level where there is no coalition. It's very difficult for any other political party to check what happened. Why? Because everything is run by the ANC. In fact, the very same person who was involved when the tenders were given is now in one of the highest decision-making bodies in the ANC. So for me, it's to say the nuances we are seeing or the nuances that you're talking about, they are there. And I believe that the political parties that are currently ruling at the moment, for me, we need smart people. We need smart people, yeah. I mean, you can tell when somebody's smart and when somebody's not smart. You can tell. It's so easy. We need smart people. People need to realize that if you're being run by people that are not smart, you're not going to get the right results. So where I'm going with this is to say the injustices and the corruption that happens on a national level is shocking. And you might find that the water you are crying about from the municipality was caused by the national government. But people don't have that follow-up to go and see, okay, how is this actually happening? For example, Giyani. The people could be sitting there saying, hey, Giyani, what's going on? Giyani, and by the way, that's an ANC-run municipality. They still don't have water. They still don't have answers till date. And all we can see is that this absolute power that people have given the ANC has corrupted them absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's important for us to move from there and go for what is new.
Let's go back to where we started, young people. Why is it that young people don't participate in politics in South Africa, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, and it's a painful thing to mention, because I never want to be seen as somebody who bashes what other political parties are doing, but I need to be honest about this, Our political system in our country is the most unattractive system in the world. Simple nuances. Somebody has said to me, and not even somebody, everybody has said to me, what type of a politician are you without a mkaba? I said, what do you mean?
I didn't know it was a prerequisite.
They said, my stomach, they said, every politician has a mkaba. Where's yours? And I said, politicians don't have to have mkaba. The second thing, how come you don't speak like you see look how come you don't speak like that? I said,
I like the well.
I'm not going to change the way that I speak. People have said to me things like, how come you don't move with 6 men that have got guns? People have said to me things like, are you able to attack another person? Because it seems like, Parliament is a wrestling match. The political leaders that we've got have turned politics into a terrible, ugly mess. That when young people look at, they see terrible, ugly mess. And to them, it's to say, I don't want to be involved. And we see that not only by them not registering to vote, but we see that by them choosing not to participate. To say, we don't want to participate because it screams ugly mess. And I said to somebody that it has to take a new generation to say, politics is not about that. Politics is about ideas, it's about implementing the ideas, about solving problems. We need that generation that will come out and solve the problems, for them to look at and understand that, okay, when they say that Mpho Dagada is a politician, and they say, what have you done? I'm not going to sit there and say, the toilets you are seeing behind you,
we expedited.
The toilets have... No. I'm going to sit there and say, we built a new city. And the young person will say, what? You built a new city? How? And I said, look, we spoke to Dubai, we spoke to Saudi Arabia, and we got the investments and we built a new city. It's a new economy. And they say, how did you do it? And I say, well, the first thing we had to do is pitch what our country is best at. The next thing we had to do is look at how this is going to grow our GDP. The next thing we had to do is find out how many jobs come out of a city. There's plumbing, there's construction, there's education, there's healthcare. Position the city, build the airport. Now a young person is saying, yo, I want to be like that guy Mpho Dagada. They say, why? And say, he builds cities. What does a politician do? The politician grows the economy. He creates jobs. He builds cities. He builds opportunities. And we need politicians to come in to show South Africans that toilets, you think I'm going into politics so that I can stand in front of toilets and say, today we are unveiling a new toilet. No, you must be joking.
What do South African politicians do currently?
That's what they do. They build toilets, they give 350s, they call people to a rally, they call artists to perform. So you think I'm going to be calling people to a rally to perform? No. We'll be unveiling the best of the best. We'll be competing with the rest of the world. That's what a politician should be doing. I said to somebody that when they were interviewing the Crown Prince of Dubai, and they asked him and they said, why does Dubai always have to be the best? Why does it always build the biggest? Why does it always... And his answer was, why not? He said, why can't Dubai be the best? Why can't we build the biggest buildings?
Who should be the best if we are not?
Same question I'm asking South Africans to say, until we change this narrative of, politician will come and deal with a role... I said to somebody that, look, when I enter politics, if you have to make me come and deal with a no water situation, whoever would have been dealing with that will probably be facing a disciplinary hearing the next day. To say, look, My job is not to be fixing what is already there or breaking. My job is to build the new and to ensure that new jobs are coming. To say, okay, you're telling me that this water infrastructure is old. Let's build a new one. And a lot of people, when you speak like this, they ask the questions. And I like this question to say, but where will you find the money? Where will you get this money to do this? And I always say that go and look at what Dubai was built upon. They only had oil in Abu Dhabi. Only. We have oil, we have diamonds, vanadium, platinum, silver, gold, chromium. We beat them 10-0. I often say this to people to say, you know, what's going on at the moment is very painful in our country because recently the Crown Prince of Dubai landed in the Eastern Cape. And people said, no, he's going for a game drive. And people said, why did he land and this and that? And I said, we've discovered oil in this country. Dubai is aware of it, that there is oil here. And recently we just learned that Petro SA, which is supposed to be in charge of our oil, is bankrupt.
Yes.
The news is reporting that they're bankrupt.
They haven't operated in a while. All they do is get diesel and sell it to Eskom.
After we've discovered that there's oil in this country, you are telling us that the company we're supposed to put to manage the oil is bankrupt, but the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi is coming to land in our country, in the area where oil and gas is, and is buying land there. To say, no, we are not children. They are aware of what they did with the oil. We as the new generation need to wake up and realize that, hey, there's oil here. There's billions on our land. We can build these cities. We can do even better than they've done.
You mentioned all these resources that we have under our feet, but we don't own almost all of them. And there's a perfect example of what you just said now, that a crown prince will come here with big ambitions, not to share, but to take over. We've done that very well. And it's not our fault to a large extent because all this happened during apartheid. But it continues. So we don't really have all these resources that we speak of, do we? We don't really own them.
Look, I think that's where it gets interesting. You know, I always say to people that the things that we are to do as Arise South Africa are things that many people will thank us for, but they are things that will be very risky upon our lives. Many of the companies that exist today in this country, they owe the country money. And I don't know how much time we have, but if I had to get into it, I would show you how many of these companies took loans from the apartheid government that they never paid back. And they built these mega companies, this Broederland group where they financed things and they owe the country so much money. But when apartheid took over, when the new government took over, all these loans were written off. Hey, some of them, hey, this, that, and the other. Hey, we are giving a new government. Let's write it off. Let's continue with the wealth. This country, number one, before we get to the minerals, is owed a lot of money. That's the first thing. So if we're talking about capital, the capital is there. The only issues are the ones that are in government at the moment. Whenever they bring up this capital, they are given money. And because theirs is not to tell the truth, they take that money, they keep quiet, and they come back and say, hey, we don't have any money.
What would you do if you were president tomorrow about that particular issue?
Oh, no, we're raising those amounts. To say, we don't care who you are. The fact that your family is this or that, or you are this company or that. No, we are backdating. Hello, Anglo-American. Nice to meet you too. The monies which you took from our government, you owe us. We're not going to kill you. But from now on, we expect you to pay back that money. Because if you steal, you need to pay back that money. Oh, hello, this company. Oh, okay. We will manage that process in a way where we will say that you are either paying back the money or you are going to be involved in developmental projects that are going to do real CSI. Not this CSI of building a school and you find a mine has mined everything.
Painting a school.
And they are painting a school. No. We are talking about real CSI projects. And one of the things that I must mention, building cities. Some of these companies must build cities. Where they took from mining, they need to build cities. Because what we saw in Dubai is these oil companies, what did they do with the money? They built cities. What does a city do? It employs majority of our people. We need new cities. We are only living on cities that were built by the apartheid government. We've never seen a city built after 1994. We need new cities, but I'll come to that. What I'm saying is once we start there, we've got a whole lot of money. Let's move. The second thing is our rand. our currency. There was a report that came out to say that the rand has been manipulated. And a lot of people don't understand this. Some people still argue it. What it means is that the rand and the dollar should be 1:1. $1 equals 1 rand, or the rand must be stronger. Because all we know is these banks made trillions through fixing the rand price. Until date, we still don't know what the rand was supposed to be. So we must fix our rand. Our rand is not supposed to be weak. Why? We have gold. Our reserve bank has gold reserves. Gold comes from our land. We have all the minerals. Our currency is rigged. We must fix it. The banks must be held to account, and we must fix our currency.
It's an interesting point you raise, because the value of the dollar is protected by its gold reserves. And those gold reserves come from African countries. So it's an interesting point you're raising. So you're saying you walk into the president's office, the first thing you do, or amongst the first things you do, is knock on those who owe South Africa money.
Oh yes, raise capital. That's the first thing.
That makes you really unpopular with the funders.
Yeah, it makes me unpopular with white monopoly capital, and that's why they won't fund me. And I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't have issues with that. I don't have issues with that. You know, I often say to people that there's a Bible scripture that says that when a thief is caught, he must pay back 7 times. A lot of times, a lot of Africans have said to me to say, the issue we have with Christianity is that it only works one side. Africans must forgive and forget. But when it comes to justice, and when it comes to actually ensuring that justice is served, it's like that part of the Bible is out. No, the Bible says when a thief is caught, he must pay back 7 times.
Yeah.
For 30 years, you've built all these conglomerates that are now saying, well, we might list in other countries, etc. No, let's go to court. Even the courts will prove that that money must be paid back, by the way. And we're not saying we're going to close down this. You know, people like to be dramatic. Hey, the economy will fall. Hey, who will allow this? Hey, look, the only thing that they can do is that they will probably try and kill me. They've tried it. The only thing they'll do is maybe they'll try and get me arrested. They've tried it.
Really?
Yeah. And what I'm saying is that you can't arrest and kill all of us. They need to realize that when I speak like this, I'm not speaking like this because I'm the only one. No. There's a whole army behind me of young people that are saying this guy is speaking the language that we understand and that we too are speaking. And that are saying that even if they come for him, there will be another one who will rise and say, hold on, this thing is going to happen. And I think that they know that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why many of the times they fund these political parties that come in and sell whatever agenda to say, hey, let's give them these peanuts so that when they get to parliament, they don't look back into those books. Those books, we're going to look back into them and we'll open them wide for the country to see, to say, things must be corrected. We need to correct the things. And moving forward, because a lot of people usually say, okay, you'll raise capital from that. That makes sense.
You build a city?
We build cities, of course. Yeah, that one is very important. We in every province, we need a new city. We need new cities. Very, very important. But let's go to the next one. The next one we said that we'd also be able to raise capital is by us positioning our country properly. Whenever you go anywhere in the world and you go to investment conferences, you go to places where people sell their countries, it's embarrassing. South Africans, they send abogogo na bomkhulu from Lutuli House to go to Russia to represent us in an investment conference. When they get there and then they say, right, South Africa, let us know, what does the future look like? But, compatriots, we are deliberating, and all the investors are looking, saying, I can't be putting my money down to people that are not making sense. Do you know how many investors have been to this country? Billionaires that flew in. The moment they met the leadership of the country, they flew out immediately. I even have inside information that Elon Musk reached out to the ANC to say, I want to invest in the country. The reception he received, he said, the way these people are thinking, it's not going to work.
You've played a role in a commission that was set up by the president.
Yes.
And clearly that brought you slightly closer to power in that sense, to see the dynamics.
Definitely, yeah.
What was the first thing, and using Elon Musk as an example, and the very example you just used now, of those who come in with billions and leave almost immediately, what was the first thing you noticed that said maybe we are in trouble?
I think for me, it's the fact that South Africans don't look at the truth. One of the sad things about that commission, it was the Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission. It was filled with CEOs that were protecting the interests of their own companies. They had no interest in seeing the country grow. Even till date, the Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission has done nothing. We all worked so hard. Some of us worked very hard, and the implementations were never done. We need to also assess our leaders and look at where they might have gotten things wrong and what caused them to get some of these things wrong. Many of the leaders that people look up to today, nothing wrong with them. But unfortunately, these were people that grew up in the struggle. They lived lives of scarcity, if I can put it in that way. To them, it was always, they killed Chris Hani. They took money from this one. The apartheid government arrested this one. It was lives of scarcity where they sort of believe that everything will end. They are still behaving that way because whenever there's a tender, they steal the money. Whenever there's this, they steal the money. And we sort of look at, okay, but how come that our country is not growing, our economy is not growing? The leaders that are there are still functioning with that apartheid mentality of it's going to wake up and go the next day, We need new leaders that are not going to function with those mentalities, that are going to function with the mentality of if we grow the country, the whole country becomes richer. It's important for everybody to understand that any country that has ever become successful has become successful because of the middle class. I often say this to say, in South Africa, we have too many poor people and politicians are happy about that. Let me give you an example, right? There are politicians that own shares in companies. Okay, let's take Cyril Ramaphosa. He owns shares in MTN, he owns shares in Vodacom, right? These are telecommunications companies, right? If you've got people that are getting 350 every single month, they're not able to buy data and use MTN and Vodacom, you're not able to make a profit, right? But if you uplift these people, they'll get houses, they'll get cars, they'll need fiber. They are now middle class. They now have more money to spend on what? On the company that you own. You will become richer. You don't need to keep them poor. The secret to becoming richer, as these politicians are thinking, is not in them oppressing the people. It's in them lifting a middle class that an economy can function from. Because, of course, they own all these companies. You look at the JSC, it's all owned by these politicians through proxies, etc. And also many of the apartheid sponsors as well. They become richer by having a middle class that is able to do things. When the middle class is now buying cars, they are becoming richer. They are now buying more airtime. Whereas this person only received 350, they are now an artisan. They are earning 8,000 rand. They are buying data now worth 350. You are now making a bigger margin. Many of them don't understand that. And I think the reason they don't is because apartheid was an evil system. It taught their minds to be like, we'll never really make it, we'll never really be there, it will never really work out. So a lot of them in their mindsets, even if you sit with them, their mindset is how do I steal quickly before something happens.
Before the shop closes.
Before the taps close, the shop closes, yeah. And it's just about people getting in there and saying, that's not how you build wealth. You look at how Dubai has built wealth. Dubai has built wealth on letting people come into the country, letting people spend in the country, understanding that they are developing it so that the people that are coming are going to be making so much money for the country, revenue, the economy will continue growing. That's how you build nations. And the way that we see in South Africa, I often say to people that you are seeing a level of thinking that is so poor that many of the times it's like they must go for counseling. If I can put it in that way, to say somebody must sit down with them and say, look, apartheid is gone. You can create prosperity for everybody. You will not lose. Don't steal the money for education. Let them get educated. Once they're educated, you can then make money through other ways or owning businesses or whatever the case that they want to do. But it's understanding that by us prospering the nation, all of us benefit.
Well, then how do you overcome, as a future leader of the country, how do you overcome corruption? Because it's systemic, it's part of the water.
Maybe let me explain some stuff, because I've looked at this corruption thing to say, where do we fail when it comes to corruption? And a lot of times I blamed the police. And I've come to realize that actually it's not just the police that are the problem. It's the National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA. When you steal money, you go into jail, you appear before the magistrate, you ask for bail, and you leave. The case is handed over to the NPA, the National Prosecuting Authority.
Yeah.
The National Prosecuting Authority received documents on all Zondo Commission to say, this 1.4 trillion that was stolen in the Zondo Commission, please investigate it and take charge. Till date, no one has been arrested. So where the issue lies is that our National Prosecuting Authority is not functioning. Politicians come in, this one is hired, this one is fired.
There's one who's been arrested, a former president, but it's a side issue.
Look, so maybe let me also put this to the table, because I think a lot of people like to think that corruption is a one-man game or corruption functions in a one-man band sort of situation, right? And corruption is like a corporate. It's like a group of people that are in ESCOM that are running their own company within a state company, right? And you find that a lot of the times the NPA has failed at prosecuting. Dockets go missing, cases are postponed after case, the investigating officers are bribed. You find that interference is there in the cases. You find that there are threats being made. You find that there is no system to actually hold all these cases. We need an NPA that functions. And one of the areas that I've spent some time studying and really looking into is blockchain technology, which is a system which the whole world believes in. Bitcoin is worth over 1 million because it's on a blockchain. It's safe. This blockchain is basically a system where you can store things like Bitcoin in the cloud, in the air, and those things cannot get lost, hijacked, changed, or any of those stories. Why are we not putting the NPA on a blockchain? To say every case of the NPA will live on the internet. It will not be changed. It will not be edited. It will not be corrupted. And let those cases run in that way, so that we begin to deal with the nuances of docket is lost, docket is stolen, this, that, and the other. Everything is done on a digital system. Not only that, we ensure that we remove politicians from the NPA. Because when we look to the National Prosecuting Authority, and if I'm losing some people, I'm talking about the people that actually make sure that criminals get arrested and they serve their time in jail. Make sure that the NPA is not influenced by politicians. Politicians add their own people. There are NPA officials that won't even last time. They'll move to the private sector because they'll say, I can't do my job because every day that I'm doing my job, I'm getting a call from this one saying, you can't do that, you can't do this. Hey, this one said I must do that. Hey, this one said, remove all the political interference. Turn the NPA into an internal, strong government entity.
One would say, wait until you're president. You would want to have some control of elements like that.
And I think, one of the good things about what I've gone through in life and what I've experienced is that I've had to run everything about this campaign on the truth. And I'll maybe let you know why. When you begin to see the injustices for so long and you live in those problems, you can only but stand for the truth. A lot of people think corruption is the best way to become rich. They're wrong. That's not the truth. The richest people in the world are not corrupt politicians. They are wrong. The richest people in the world, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, the owner of LVMH, these are business people that are not politicians.
However, one can say they fund the influence of policies.
Okay, we'll get there, but I want to take it a step further, right?
Okay.
The richest people in this country are also not politicians. Many of them go and beg. Ask yourself, if this corruption money pays so well, why are all these people not becoming wealthy? Because the money comes in brown envelopes, they spend it at Konka, the money grows, It's a lie that corruption pays. We've seen it. We've looked at politicians that we thought, you've been a politician and you've been corrupt for so long, yet we can't even see one or two things that you've built that make sense. It's a lie. If corruption was paying, then we would have seen that the biggest companies in the world are owned by these politicians. We would be seeing these things. But instead, what we are seeing is that many of these politicians end up trying to invest their money overseas, which can be traced and which can be found back, and which we will do, by the way. Many of them try and invest in things that don't make sense. One will buy cows and those cows will all die because they're trying so hard to hide this money. If we are really talking about how to build wealth, the correct way to build wealth is through an honest living. That's the correct way to build wealth. So I think we also have to conscientize people to say, you're not going to become wealthy by being a corrupt politician. In fact, I've got too many years of life to live waking up thinking, hey, the next person who comes into office, what if they found that I stole this money? What if this? Hey, what if that? No, that's not how wealth is built. That's not how wealth works.
How do you, once you enter into office, deal with the monies that are turned into cows and monies that are hidden in faraway places?
We are going to take them back. We're going to find them.
Yeah.
We're going to take them back. And I think that's what excites me about knowing that there's this new freshness in the air of young people saying that they're going to vote. I said to somebody the other day that what excites me about Arise South Africa is the fact that we're one of the only political parties out there that are not funded. Yet there are people that are saying, we have not seen your billboards. We have not attended your rallies where you bought us artists to come and sing and you gave everybody t-shirts, but we will vote.
You haven't won the politics of the stadium.
Yes.
You know that politics.
Yeah, we haven't
won. We haven't seen your participation.
Yeah, we're not there. And people are saying we're going to vote. And I say to them, why? And they said, because for the first time, we are seeing a model of how politics should be. One of the things that we must do in this country, and we'll do it very well, is go back and fetch the money. If at the end of the term of where Arise South Africa ends, we can ensure that this money has been brought back, we'd be very happy.
But we've seen a lot of this type of monies come in since the New Dawn.
Yeah, they're starting, yeah. But there's many more that are still coming.
You speak of the New Dawn in your book, I Am the Vision. Check it out. It's a manifesto, actually. You speak of the New Dawn, and you speak of how, you were called up by the very president who represented this thing. What was your feeling about the New Dawn when the President Ramaphosa took office?
I think like many South Africans, I believed it.
And?
Like many South Africans, I believed it. I was hopeful. And I think one of the things that I didn't check, and this is what I'm saying to South Africans to say, this is a must do. I didn't have a look at who's funding this New Dawn. I just saw the rallies were there, the monies were there to do the work of campaigning. And I thought, one can believe in this New Dawn. And as time went by, I had to sober up to see that, okay, you have to look at who's funding the political party. That's first and foremost. Pastors would say to you that money is a spirit. Sangomas also say the same thing, Guti, money is a spirit. The Jews always say the same thing, Guti, money is a spirit. That if money comes from a bad person to do something, that money will go and do something bad, And I've come to learn that money is a spirit. And if the person has made their wealth of oppressing people, of being greedy, of stealing, of doing all these things that don't benefit the country but self, that political regime will take that money to do the same thing. And that's particularly the reason why we've said, you know what, we'd rather be an unfunded political party than take monies of people that we know that we won't ever have a voice as a political party.
But game of politics requires a lot of funding.
It does.
And how do you keep going if you happily be unfunded?
I think for me, the generosity of South Africans, number one, that's what keeps us going. People that are saying, hey, Mpho, we hear you, here's 500. Mpho, we hear you, here's 200. Mpho, we hear you, here's a couple of t-shirts. Mpho, we hear you, here's this. That's what keeps us going. But also, I must give credit to this industry, the podcast industry, people like Penwell. I did an interview on the Penwell show and I think it hit about 200,000 views, That's something that in the olden day, one would have to pay for, to get 200,000 people to view this, one would have to pay for it. I'm doing this podcast with you, and everybody who's watching the podcast, please make sure you share this, because we don't have money to go on SABC, but you can share it with 20 people, 30 people, 100 people, and this podcast can go viral. So let's ensure that every single person click while I am talking. Don't just listen. Click on the share button and share it. Let's make sure that this goes viral.
You speak in the YouTube language. Click, like, and subscribe, or whatever
yes.
it is that they say, which I never remember.
Because people don't know this, but I'm here speaking to you because you bought the book, and I'm sure you liked the ideas in the book, and
That's
you thought,
it. They're solid.
listen to this.
Solid ideas.
This might have cost me in another world 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, but this is free. Because you saw an idea and you said, you know what, let's give him airtime. And it's this new world that I have to say that the truth is now disseminating more. I must be honest. Many of our members are saying, we saw you on a podcast. Many of our members are saying, we saw you on the Panel Show, we saw you. And even from this podcast, I know that people will say, we saw you on King David's podcast. So for me, it's understanding that though it's like everything in creation is saying we need the truth. It's time for the truth. Let the truth come out no matter what. And we're seeing that more and more people are learning. This is my statement to South Africans to say, I believe people will vote, and I believe that we'll be able to go out there and have a voice. But what I want South Africans to remember me for is that there was a guy who came with new ideas that could be implemented. I said to somebody, there was a politician, a very senior politician in the country, who called my office. And they called somebody and they were trying to ask many questions. And this person in my office was just giving them lots of different answers, And they finally came out and they said, you know what? I'll just be honest. I'll pay you. Who writes Mpho Dagada speeches? I just want the number of that person so I can offer them a job,
What was this? Is there an answer to that question?
The person said he writes them himself.
Maybe he should pay you. Maybe he should pay you to write his speeches.
And they said to me to say, for me, it's to say, I was happy when that happened because I said, I hope that politician steals my points. I have no issue with people taking my points and going and implementing and talking about them. Somebody said to me the other day, they said that they were sitting in a council meeting in a municipality and somebody was mentioning everything that I said in a speech, point for point as this. And I said, that's good, I'm cheering them on.
It's working.
To say, let's bring in ideas. Because the idea of pitching a toilet, how long are we going to be talking about toilets? Let's bring in ideas. Let's talk about Alexandra and say, how do we fix Alexandra? How do you create $1 billion economy out of Alexandra? Is it possible? What do you do there? And let politicians take notes and steal and say, hey, we might not like that Mpho guy, but we'll implement. Then the country will grow.
Let's talk about some of your ideas.
Of course, yeah.
Let's go to, because I highlighted some of the stuff that you speak of in the book. They're quite clear. Let's go to a simple one, and we touched on it a little bit. Mineral resources. We spoke about it already, but what you immediately, you're president of the country, and you're confronted with these amazing resources. What do you do to develop this country using those very resources? Idea, and then we move on to the next one.
Cool. So the first thing I would do is I would build an aeroplane manufacturing hub in the Northwest Province. We have all the minerals in the country to create the aeroplane. All the minerals. We've never created an aeroplane. Number two, the world exports our minerals to create aeroplanes. To create the engine of the aeroplane. Every part and component of the aeroplane in the Northwest Province. I'd create. Government deploy funds, not to one person. No, there is a setup. Let's call him a minister of aeroplanes, if we have to. Your job is to make sure that by the end of a year, there is an aeroplane manufacturing hub here. And people will say, oh, President, that's going to need a lot of research. Great. I'm very happy. Some will say, hey, that might need a new university. Yeah, let's build a new university. It's part of the plan. Some will say, that will need a smelter. Yes, let's do the smelter. Some will say, President, yes, we're doing that. Why? I'm saying, let's use what we have as a country to produce something we can sell to the world and be the advantage of the world. Let's make aeroplanes cheaper than some cars. Somebody must say, hi, man, Rolls-Royce is selling a car for 10 million. I can buy an aeroplane from South Africa for 6 million. I'm not buying a Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce must wake up and say, hey, those Africans, they are now selling aeroplanes let's create flying cars. So I'm saying let's use our minerals to create a finished good that we can market and sell to the world as ours. Because when we say let's create cars, they will say, no, but you've already signed agreements with Germany. You've already did. Okay.
I wanted you to finish to get to that
higher.
point.
Yeah,
yes.
Let's go higher.
Because we have signed clearly agreements that are just giving us ourselves permission to assemble, not to create.
Yeah,
and that's why we haven't created.
Let's go. And maybe let me put it this way to say, there are people out there that believe that the competence level in South Africa is not that high, right? Let me be the one to change that, to say, we have a very high competence level. People must not think Elon Musk are better than us. No. They must not think that. They must not think that. I often say to people that when Elon Musk was my age, he was not yet a millionaire. I'm only 30 years old, by the way. I was a millionaire at 21. And I'm not the only one. There are many other young people that are bright, that are ready. The flying car I'm talking about, there are young people that have already built prototypes that are all just waiting to say, whenever we get funding, we need to do this flying car. So I'm saying, some of these steps that people are asking us to do, hey, no, he's thinking too high. Let him start by building a bicycle factory. No. That's not. Maybe you should run politics and do the bicycle. I'm not going to do politics for the bicycle. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
You know, I have no interest in doing a bicycle. I don't want to sit in a cabinet meeting and discuss our bicycle factory. No. I want to be discussing the aeroplane to say, right, if we are struggling with the engine, let's bring in the best engineer in the world who builds engines. And people are saying, hey, President, and I'm calling all the pastors in the room. I'm saying, pastors, you are all praying and you are fasting. You are not praying to God to protect you. You are praying for engineers that will build. And the pastors are saying, President, what do you mean? I said, pastors, you are changing your sermon on Sunday. You are praying about the God who answers through aeroplanes. And pastors are saying, hey, okay, we thought we could only pray for headaches and marital issues. Now the president has given, and the whole country has got a program to say, we must achieve the aeroplane. Dubai did the exact same thing. And the results were astounding. Very astounding. There was a point in Dubai where 70% of all the cranes, those big machines that lift up buildings and move them and drop them, 70% of all the cranes in the world were all in Dubai.
Sure.
People asked and said, how did cranes leave Italy and go to Dubai? How did cranes leave New York and go to Dubai? How did cranes? I said, where there is a vision, automatically everybody lights up and they follow the vision. Immediately, if you can point the vision and say, we are doing this as the vision, you'll see the provision will arrive. You'll even start hearing that there were people who already planned this before. You'll even see, look, the aeroplane will be built before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And immediately once we build the aeroplane, we say, right, as a country, we've done it. Let's move to the next, and we move to the next, and we move to the next, and we move to the next. And very soon, South Africans begin to realize that what we were sold is a lie.
Let's move to the next.
Reason.
Let's move to the next.
Yeah.
Electricity. We all know the problems. It's a well-known story, the challenges we're facing. For me to delve into where we are, you speak a lot about the challenges in the book. And also you speak about the solutions. Idea, electricity. We know where we are. You touched on a number of issues, but let me not shine on your shine.
So the first thing I would do with Eskom, and hey, people have said very interesting views. Somebody said, we're not going to vote for this guy. Somebody said, Baba, you won't even get funding because the way you're doing things. The first thing I would do at Eskom is remove the tender process.
Okay.
There will be no tender.
How will Eskom acquire stuff?
Eskom will function like any other corporate company.
But corporate companies send out tenders.
Let me maybe explain, right? There was a research, Germans that came to Eskom and they did a study at Eskom. They found that if Eskom wants to buy something, it takes 2 years, right? So they asked the managers there at Eskom to say, we're compiling and they were paid by National Treasury to come and do research on Eskom because Eskom needs more money to borrow more money from government. And they said, there's something we don't understand. Why is it that when Eskom wants to release a tender, or wants to buy something, like for example, Eskom wants to buy a new machine to stop maybe the pressure of the boiler, right? It takes 2 years. And the guy said, the tender needs to first go out to the minister and Luthuli House. The ANC must first decide who's going to get the tender. Once they've agreed who the tender is going to, then the tender must be advertised. Then there must be a funny law process where people are just submitting tender documents, yet they know who's going to get the tender themselves. Then the tender must be awarded. Then that person must go back and find money from cadres and whoever do the tender. Then they must inflate the price. Then they must delay. The issues we have at Eskom today is that the tender process has ruined everything. These so-called buyers at Eskom that give tenders to their friends, enough. We've got engineers in our country, we employ them. If Eskom needs to buy something, it can buy it directly. Oh, but Mpho, what about the companies that are going to be middlemen? You are taking away their money. They won't be able to survive. They won't be able to. The country is not surviving because of those middlemen that are causing these issues. The country is not surviving. Our economy is not surviving. These guys are not middlemen. They're criminals.
But you're changing a procurement system. Ultimately, Eskom has to buy something. And somebody has to decide where to buy it.
It will buy it internally.
But the tender...
We will set up employees of Eskom that will go and purchase these things.
You can't say those people are not corruptible. It's still state money.
No. It's different. It's different. We're not giving you a tender to go and do something and then we pay you. No. We are saying, right, Eskom, we need a machine that's going to maybe work with our boilers, right? They go on the internet. They find the company that produces that machine. They purchase that machine. Once the machine is delivered, they pay for that machine. The guarantee of that machine, they'll get it from that company. It's that simple.
Yeah.
How does the process work at the moment? Goes to Luthuli House. Luthuli House says, okay, do we only need the machine? Say we need machine and maintenance for 12 months. Issue out a tender. They give it to somebody in Eskom. The person goes and checks the prices on the internet. They come back, they inflate the prices, they issue out a tender. Once the tender is issued out, somebody goes in. Meanwhile, the whole country has no electricity. This tender process is happening.
Are you saying tenders everywhere work like that? Not necessarily Eskom. And I ask this question because tender processes exist everywhere.
There are certain places where tenders must exist.
Yeah,
there are certain places where the tender process makes sense, right? But not in a process that affects all other processes. Electricity is too important of a process for us to allow tender entrepreneurs to collapse Eskom. It's too important. Yeah, maybe if we were talking construction, we could work with the tender system there. But Eskom, the tender system there is the reason. And I'm not the one saying this. Experts gave that report to say it doesn't make sense. Eskom will never function because when something breaks down, it doesn't get fixed immediately. You don't buy the thing to fix it tomorrow. A tender must come. You know, people even go as breaking things down themselves at Eskom because they're waiting that, we need a new tender.
You speak of storage of power. Does that technology exist anywhere?
Look, it does. And I've sat down with a couple of guys that are saying to us that we've got natural ways of storing energy. If you look at Kimberley, the big hole, many mines in South Africa, they are able to store energy. People have sat down with engineers that have explained to me to say, look, we can store energy. Kinetic energy can be stored through those systems. But most importantly, the pollution that people speak about. There's a Harvard study that says that all the pollution from Eskom can be dealt with by us filling up our old mines with those pollutions. We have so many dumped mines that are just open manholes that people can fall into. You put the pollution in there, you've solved these issues. Harvard study. Because sometimes when we speak, people will like to say, which study, this, that. It's a Harvard study. You can go and research the study.
Yeah.
So if Harvard is saying to us that, guys, these things are possible, we need to interrogate to say, the ones who are saying it's not possible, where did they get their impossibility from? Because I think we're too quick to believe the ones that are saying it's impossible.
Give us one more idea. Sorry, I interject about electricity. I want to cover a lot of them.
A lot of electricity, yeah.
A lot of the issues that you have.
Issues, yes. Another idea of electricity, and I think this is quite important, is understanding that our natural gas is something we can use to power our nation. We have lots of natural gas. Lots of natural gas.
What do we do with it now?
Nothing happens to it. There is a pipeline that Cecil has. I've looked at the numbers. They are playing with this thing. Yeah. Natural gas can power up a lot of different industries, and we can also ship it, package it, ship it, and sell it to other countries.
You speak of diesel being a cheap product that can be used to power.
Yes.
We're paying a lot for diesel as it stands.
It's the middleman, it's the tenor-entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eskom, that's a good example. Eskom needs diesel, advertise a tender, tenor-entrepreneur takes the diesel price, plus they add a commission of 90% on the diesel. And then what do? They sell us the diesel back to Eskom. Why can't Eskom buy the diesel directly?
Hey, your president tomorrow and land is on the table. I asked Helen Ziller the same question. Land is a thorny issue.
It is, yeah.
You speak about it a lot in the book. You make reference to the challenges that we face. You speak about productive land and you know, land and so forth. Give me a picture of a Mpho's country and when it comes to land being a factor that we have to deal with as South Africans.
Look, the land must work for the people that are in it. And I think that's important. There's lots of countries that have had land issues, and I've researched these countries extensively. Australia, their land policy. New Zealand as well. I've done some research on those land policies. If you are not using the land, we will give it to somebody who will use it. That's the policy, right?
It sounds
yeah, but
it sounds brutal. It's my land. I can build whatever I want on it.
No, if you're not using it.
It's mine.
Okay, I'm going to explain to you the nuances, right?
Okay.
Our policy as a rise on land, your land must be linked to jobs.
Okay.
The people want jobs. If you have land, your land must provide jobs. If your land is not providing jobs, we will take it and give it to those who will use the land to provide jobs. Let me explain. There are people in this country that own land. They do nothing with it. For them, it's just to say, I own majority of the land. I'm rich. That's it.
I'm a landowner.
I'm a landowner. There are people without land. Those people are looking for jobs. How do you make the two meet? The land must produce jobs. What will happen if that's the case? People that own land will start to solve the problems in the country. You'll hear a big farmer now saying, hey, because the president said this and I don't want to lose my land. Okay, President, that aeroplane you want to build, let's build it on my land. And I'll be saying, hey, Mr. Van Tonde, I thought you said your land is not available. He says, no. Bring the aeroplane project. I'll give the land for free because jobs will come out. Those people that we've been holding on to land for useless cases will begin to use the land productively. They'll start farming. Some of them will start to make sure that that land is productive in whatever way that is productive. We saw the same thing in Australia. There was no war. There were no fights. There was no issues of people saying, hey, the land issue is sensitive. No. If they are disagreeing, let them go and see what Australia did. How productive that land is.
My issue with it is you don't explain the process of me owning 100 hectares of land. And this
100 hectares equals one job.
This is my own land. And that I've inherited over centuries in my family. You can't just rock up as a president and say, you're not using it, we're taking it.
Okay, so here's something that we're not quite together on, right?
Okay.
We're not saying that land that we're taking from you. The word taking is very... Because are we... Okay, let me maybe bring it another angle. Because I wanted to bring it philosophically, but I think I might lose some viewers. Let me put it in a way that they might understand, right? You own the land. You are not using it. You are not planning on using it. That's why the land is dormant, right? Let's give the land to people that will use it. That's what we're saying.
It's mine.
Okay,
I'm doing what I want with it.
Okay, no, but you're not doing anything.
No, I'm doing what I want, and doing what I want is nothing.
What you want is nothing.
Yes.
No, then we can't allow that. The land must equal jobs. So we'd sit down with you and we'd say, look, what is your plan on the land? How many jobs have you created?
I don't have the funds to create any jobs. Give me $1 billion rands.
That's fine.
I'll work the land.
There's somebody who has funds to create the jobs. Let them come and use the land. When you are ready to create, with your idea, we'll give you another piece of land.
You see, before we even get to my idea, it is my land. It's a land distribution challenge that we're facing in the country.
So let me maybe explain to say it's been done before in Australia. I need to re-emphasize that because I think a lot of people would like to think that we're doing something new. It's been done before.
However, you'll be dealing with a lot of court cases. You're essentially asking me to give up my own wealth. This is my land. Whether I use it productively or not, it remains mine.
Okay,
I can build anything I want on it or do nothing with it.
All right, cool. Land is a point of privilege, right?
Okay.
I can almost guarantee you that everybody who owns land will use it productively. I can almost guarantee you that in this country, no one will lose the land, but jobs will be created from that land. I can almost guarantee. Let me explain. When Australia started the program, do you know what Australians started to do? They started to import Zimbabweans to come and farm on their land. To say, hey, I'm too busy. The government will take my land. Hey, bring a farmer from Zimbabwe. They say these guys are good with tobacco farming. Hey, Joe, farm the land. You'll give me 30%. And then, the rest you can keep. And the guy says, okay, that's fine. Yeah, just make sure you produce the jobs. That's what will be happening. That idea that people will just sit back and say, government can take my land. We'll probably take 1 or 2 because a family is too rich to manage it. But somebody who does not have money, that's where you'll even find their uncles saying, hey, no, the land must always be busy because we're in a country where your land must produce. And we're not asking for too much. What we're doing is we're controlling those evil people that own every piece of land and they don't want to do anything in this country.
Majority of South African land is in white hands. We know this. It's 70%.
Let's put them
and
to
more.
work.
And what they do with it, I can have nothing on it. Just have beautiful grass
so now
that I look at.
Working. Now they are going to be forced to use the land productively.
And you imagine a scenario where you knock on my door and say, if you don't use it, we take it.
Yes.
And give it to someone who'll use it. It's the take that I have an issue with, but we can leave it there.
Look, I think it's warranted, but I think you're thinking about it in terms of these are poor people that own the land. And I think
no, actually, I'm not. I'm thinking about it as you can't, as a government, come and knock at my door and say, I saw this car has been parked here for 2 years. You're not using it. We want to use it, and we're going to take it from you. And I say, I'm too busy to use it.
Okay, let's use the car example because I think you've done quite well with that, right? If you don't renew your license disc and your car is caught on the road without a renewed license disc, the government will impound your car and take it.
They'll give me a fine.
Okay, they'll give you a fine maybe if you are late or whatever. But let's say, for example, your car has not been registered for the next 3 years.
Okay,
You're not compliant at all, right? They find your car parked somewhere and they impound it. When you go to the impound, they'll say you owe a fine of 10,000 rand or 5,000 rand, right? Then you say, I don't have the fine to pay. Then they'll say, okay, we'll have to auction off your car.
No, it doesn't get that far, but I hear you. It doesn't get that far.
Why? Because you'll find the 5,000.
No, but it doesn't. It can't
It won't get that far because you will find it. You'll be saying, hey, Joe, quickly give me 5,000 rand and then you'll have a car.
No.
And then the person will say, okay, that's fine.
Government has no right to auction my car because I cannot pay a fine.
Oh, but the government has done that with buildings.
They have
Don't you know?
Yes, but they with my car we can leave it. They can leave it parked
with your building. You didn't pay rates and taxes in your building, and yet
look. I don't know a case like that.
So there are many. There are many. Oh no, go to City of Tshwane, go to City of Johannesburg. Every other week they're auctioning off buildings because people have not paid rates or taxes.
Okay,
but
I won't argue because I don't know the facts.
We can take it further and saying, if you're not going to be employing people on the land, we will increase the tax of that land.
Okay.
And that tax will be used to create jobs. But what we are saying, we are dealing with the matter. I wanted to say diplomatically, but I want to say in the most intelligent way. Yeah. Because if we say we're taking land, everybody will be up in, okay, who do you know who owns the land? Hey, is the land owned by A? Is it owned by B? Hey, it moved hands. Hey, no.
And who gets the land?
Yeah, we're saying whoever has the land now, you have 2 years. Every 100 hectares equals 1 job.
If you don't use
must be more than 4,000 rand. Everybody says, okay, perfect. We're now employing people. Okay, hey, Mina, I'll just plant millies. Okay, Mina, I'll just do this. Mina, I'll tell you now, within a month, all those farms will have employed people.
And when you say, if you don't use it, we take it, that's fine. Let's move to the next step.
Somebody who will.
Yes, that person.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Somebody who's ready to use the land, who's saying, I've got the seeds, I'm a farmer, but I don't have the land. This is the person who's saying, my grandfather's land was stolen. Hey, Mina, my family was... Don't worry, Baba. Here's the land. Now who's taking the land? Signiga 1 year to get it together. Land equals jobs.
We get this guy, whether it's Mandla or Fantonder, who is ready with the funds. Does his color matter in your world?
Oh, no. It doesn't. But maybe let me bring
the new guy.
The new guy, yeah.
Yes. Does his color matter?
No, it doesn't.
Whether it's black or white.
It doesn't. No, what matters is the jobs.
So the BEE thing falls away in your world.
Look, what matters to us is the jobs because the voters are saying create jobs.
Irrespective of who creates the jobs.
Yeah, they are saying create jobs and jobs that make sense.
You know why I ask his color?
But I wanted to give you an example to explain how these things are possible.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe before you do that. Sorry. In Dubai, they've started to build cities based on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Dubai for a conference. It was a blockchain conference. I was flown out by a company to go there. They said, listen, you understand blockchain. We want you to be a part of this. I went there. And they said, this is a media city. And I said, okay. Why do you call it a media city? They said, every company that comes and functions here in the media space will pay less tax.
Okay.
But if they're not in the media space, they'll pay a higher tax. And I said, oh, that's unfair. I said, take me to the media city. And when I got to the media city, I saw all these media companies. And I said, every company that doesn't do media will pay a higher tax. I said, hi, man, that's wrong. What if I change from media and I want to do,
something else. Farming.
Accounting. Farming, yeah. And they said, no, we're doing this because we want to attract all the media houses into one area and force them to collaborate and work together so that we can build a media hub in Dubai.
Okay.
We need TV and media in Dubai.
It's Silicon Valley.
Yeah. And I said, okay, you're right, because I've never seen a movie shot in Dubai. And I thought, okay, it makes sense, right? We're doing the same thing. We're saying all the landowners come here. For very long, you've owned land. People have been looking for jobs. Land equals privilege. Privilege equals responsibility. Create jobs. We're not telling you how. Create jobs. No, but you can't be forcing us to be part of the job. Create jobs. If you don't, you can pay a higher tax, or we will take the land and give it to somebody who's creating jobs. The same thing was done in Australia. Because many of them, the farmers like to say, we'll move to Australia when you get there. The reason they are going there, the reason why farmers move to Australia, by the way, is because they know they'll get access to land. Because everybody in Australia is busy with the land because they know that's the rule of the law. So it's not something that we're creating that's dramatic or out of this world, or it's something that other countries are doing. We can even copy and paste. I even said to somebody that, hey, you don't even need to worry about legislation. Just go to Australia, copy, baba, edit there, paste. It works. We can even form a partnership and say, Australia, please, let's form a partnership, educate us on this thing. It's simple.
Let me tell you why I asked the color thing about the state of readiness of the new guy, the guy who is ready to use the land.
Yeah.
And the one says, hey, I just don't have the resources to use it. I am a fantonder. I've been owning 70% of this land. And with the incorrect assumption that he doesn't have the money to use it. And now he says, I'm happy, which is highly unlikely, to give it up to government to use it productively to create jobs. And you're now saying, we found somebody else who's ready to use this land, whoever this guy is. The color thing comes to play for me when we say someone has to have the resources to use the land. You and I know our history. Our history doesn't give us a lot of resources. We come in very not ready for any opportunity. We walk into this new world of opportunities with empty hands. And yet we compete with people who have resources 3 years ahead of us. And yet we are expected to be ready. I say this and I ask you, the new guys that are going to buy or get the land, as you put it, get the land from government because they have the resources to do something with it and create jobs, are likely to be of the same color because they come in already with the resources to work on the land. If I was to walk into a room today, Mpho, and somebody says there's a company available for sale, it's worth R1 billion. It's called SAA. There's a great possibility there's a white guy who's readier than me to buy it. And nothing changes in the world that you and I have been trying to solve as South Africa. And that world is that of inequality and so forth and so forth. Because real inequality is black and white. It's not black and black. Black and black is in Sandton. But the whole country is black and white. Inequality. What do you say to that? To the guy who's coming in, he's of the same color of the guy that's giving up the land.
Yeah. So I think your point is very valid. And I come from Limpopo. There was a tea farm in Tzaneen where there was a white family that was employing most of the community around it. There was a land claim or a land grab / claim. The white family lost the land, and the black family took over the land, right? Today you drive in that land, that tea plantation is dead, right? Jobs gone, right?
Community
Struggling,
yes.
Right? And I asked the community, right? And I said, and by the community, I mean someone who's from there, right? They part of the family that runs that area. And I said to them, what is the community saying, right? And they said the community is saying they should have left the farm that gave them jobs and given the guy who's claiming the land another farm so that he can start. Because he took over something he didn't understand and he destroyed it, right? And I said, how? The community must be saying that no, they are very happy that the land is in the right hands. And they said no. The community even went further to say the Zimbabwean nationals that are in that area warned them to say this method is not going to work.
We've seen it before.
You are going to end up without jobs. And the community today is saying before government does anything with regards to land, let them protect jobs. And I sat down with them and I said, but community, that means that we might need to bring back Van Tonder. And community said, will our jobs come back? And I said, probably, because he has the capital. And they said, then let the jobs come back. I've come to understand that South Africans are not willing to give up their jobs. I was very radical before, right? To say, guys, let's suffer for 10 years with no banks and no jobs and we'll build afterwards. South Africans said, hey.
When you say we, you're saying blacks will build.
Yeah. And they said, hey, Baba, don't you dare. Because I was coming with the mentality of saying, these banks that manipulated the rand, let's shut them down and open up new banks. They said, shut down what? They said, hey, that radicalism will stop the economy. So I've come to learn that you don't shut down what is already putting bread on the table. You simply create more of it. And when you create more of it, you realize that the color of more is the color of representing the people. So let me give you an example. That family is claiming land and you say, right, the land you're claiming is this many hectares. Unfortunately, this land is a tea plantation. It's employing 30,000 people in this Tzaneen community. We will give you the same piece of land that someone else is not using, and we will give it to you in this area. And the family says, okay, that's fine. The family starts, they employ 2 people, things are not working out. That's fine, they're growing. They employ 3 people, that's okay, they are growing. But the error that we've been making with land is we are just taking, and when we take, the jobs go, and when the voters say, create jobs, we want jobs first, we go back and we say to them, but we thought you wanted land first. And they said, no, you misunderstood. So I've understood what the voters are saying. And they're saying jobs first. We want the land, but let's protect the jobs. How do you protect the jobs? By putting in this law that I'm saying to say, if your land is not employing people, because essentially my law is land distribution. We're bringing back the land.
Kinda.
And not even kinda. Because what you'll realize is that many of the land will begin to employ people. You'll find people saying to people to say, come and use the land for free. I just don't want it to be taken out of my name.
But true land distribution speaks of ownership. It doesn't speak of who's employed on the land.
Look, I agree with ownership, but you keep missing the job part.
I hear it. And that's why I say, and I'm merely putting the argument on the table to say, are we all aiming as part of this thing that we're doing to try to return back the land to the people who say we own it. This is our land. Bahamashabela own 100 hectares of this entire place. But it was stolen from us.
Oh, okay, perfect. We'll give you land, but we are saying we will not give you land that is in creating employment. We will give you the equivalent
of what was stolen from you.
But that's not creating employment. Yes, that's what we are saying.
Okay. All right. I want to move because we can stay long on this. How do you measure productive land? You said only if it creates jobs.
Yeah. 100 hectares, one job. I mean, those semantics can be changed.
True.
Yeah. But we want to measure.
Okay.
And maybe let me go further to the thinking, because some people have challenged the thinking. And I said, what you don't realize is very soon, farming is going to be a fourth industrial revolution technology. You won't need to employ people on a farm.
You speak of that in your book.
Yeah, you'll
Yes.
use all the technology there is. By this law, we are protecting jobs. So I'm already thinking ahead to say, farmers won't need okay, let's protect jobs. How do we protect jobs? If you've got land, jobs.
But aren't you delaying an already moving tech? By emphasizing the usage of...
There will be people that will pay people's salaries without them working on the land.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be people that will say, I don't want to lose my land. How many people must I employ? And the beautiful thing is I've tried talking to Afrikaner people that own land. And when I told them about this, they said, that's fine.
Do they tell you why they're not using it now?
Look, many of them, it is generational wealth that they didn't plan for. And many of them are not willing to sell it because they've been told it's generational wealth. And I think the nuance that comes with that is because my grandfather was buried on this land and he said, upon this rock, the land shall. Fantonde feels that, man, if I sell the land, I'm selling my grandfather.
Yeah.
You know, so it's those small nuances that immediately you say to him, jobs, he says, okay, great. You've put a fire behind me. I'll be able to. And many of them might even actually say, okay, you know what? I don't have capacity. I'm in London. I've moved on. Give the land to people that will use it productively.
New idea, your idea on crime and corruption. Let's talk about crime, because crime is a specific issue. We know the challenges. That's why I don't want to delve too much on them. And your book, every time you have an idea, you spend a page or two describing the dynamics of that problem. Let's talk about crime. We seem to be having statistics that are not going down, but going up instead on all factors. Give me your ideas. How do you wake up in the morning as the president of this country tomorrow and the first thing you deal with is crime?
Look, so I said to somebody the other day that the prison I've envisioned is very occultic. And they said, why? And I said, because it's a prison that deals with the mind. It's a prison that says, you are in prison. For you to get dessert, write an essay in your home language on why raping a woman damages her for generations to come to get a slice of cake. Somebody says, so this prisoner the prisoner's saying, hey, I haven't had cake because I've been in prison for 3 years. Okay, let me write. Point number 1, I will not rape women because... And this prisoner stops and says, man. I prefer, if a woman says no, you can convince her. And they bring this paper and say, oh, sorry, you're not getting cake. You have answered incorrectly. And
there's some who live without cake.
No, hold on. It starts with the cake.
Okay.
Then we go to second privileges, like for you to play in a soccer match, you need to have reached this certain level. And now they're saying how? Just because I don't want to give reasons on why I shouldn't rape a woman. Hi, man, this thing is not right, you know? And you begin to press on the mind that when they come out of prison, they are a cult member in the way that they will repeat to you to say, why should you not rape a woman? Let's talk about today's prison. Somebody leaves a prison. Research studies show that in the 3 months of leaving, they are a repeat offender. The mind is not developed or changed completely.
Are we not rehabilitating?
They're not. In these prisons, many of them sit, eat, and that's it. There's no rehabilitation. Rehabilitation must be an occultic work where when the person comes out, he must be so used to the pros and cons of stealing. He must be so used to the pros and cons of GBV. He must recite to you why anybody who commits GBV deserves to be in prison. It must be an indoctrination of the mind. I said to somebody that when you look at most human beings in this world that are, and allow me to be a little bit controversial, right? I remember I did an interview with a lot of ZCC members, right? And I asked the ZCC members, I said, when you go to Moria, why do you switch off your phone? You know? And they said, yeah, in Moria, you can't take videos, you can't take pictures. And I said, who said you can't? And they said, the pastors there say that you can't. And I said, I would go there and switch on my phone. Then they said, you will grow a horn on your forehead. I said, eh? They said, yeah. If you go to Moria and you just do whatever you like, you'll grow a horn or your things won't work out. I said, my things won't work out because I switched on a phone in Moria. And they said, yeah. There were people who tried it and that happened. And then I said, how did you learn this? You know? And I began to look that every Sunday, every Wednesday, these men go to a service where they are told to say, Moria is a holy place. It was found as a holy place. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. When you are wearing your badge, you cannot do. And I'm like, these people in their minds have been indoctrinated for years. And they've been indoctrinated to the point where they now believe that these things is how things work. And I'm in no way saying that it's a cult or it's not a cult. I don't want to get into that debate because we can be there all night. But you've got a prisoner who has your full attention 24/7. Yet when he leaves prison, he repeats what he did. There is no indoctrination of what it is to stop him from doing these things. The songs they sing in prison, none of them resemble that. You look at the songs that they sing in places where people believe this, even in the Muslim culture. You look at the songs that they do, the songs that they sing, indoctrination of the mind. We must do that in the prisons. Then another important thing that we don't do in our prisons enough is that our prisons have been turned into places where people go to form a society that complains about how difficult the world was.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is many of the people that are in prison are not aware of what they did wrong. They are not aware of how it inconvenienced the next person. They are only aware of what society did to them wrong. Psychological matters of understanding how these things work. That's another one. I'll also try and be quick. Another one is also ensuring that we have a reward system for prisoners. If you've been to prison and you leave prison, if you don't commit a crime for 1 month, you get 500.
Okay.
Yeah?
Out of prison.
Out of prison, I don't commit a crime, I get 500. Why? If you don't commit a crime for 2 years, you get 1,000 rand. Yeah? 1,000. Every time I'm thinking of getting a crime, what am I doing? I'm putting financial nuances. Okay, somebody will say, but President, you're wasting money on prisoners. Do you know that we spend per day on a prisoner in this country? We're spending about 600 rand on keeping a prisoner inside jail. Giving him 500 for not committing a crime in a whole month is actually less than how much you spend keeping him in prison. Hello? How do you solve the budget issue here? So some of these ways that we need to think, we must think at the level that citizens think in. The thief is stealing because he wants to get money in an easy way. Oh, there's an easier way. Don't commit crime, you'll get money. And immediately that person is now rehabilitated to now think in that way, to now, it's like a cult, if you can put it in that way. But the cult is making sure the economy grows, is making sure things work out. Another thing, intelligence systems inside of prisons. Camera systems where prisoners work to monitor citizens out there.
There are cameras now, but I'm not sure they can get switched off if you know the Thabo Bester story.
I'm taking it further to saying let the prisoners monitor the hotspots. I don't know if you know what I mean. What I'm saying is the prisons become intelligence centers. They watch and they're trained to watch other criminals. The prisoners become the detectives.
I hear.
Yeah, through those. So the cameras in Hillbrow, who's watching those cameras? But there's a prisoner there who's watching at if he's walking like this, he's going to commit a crime. Immediately he presses a button, it alerts the person on the ground to say, oh, the prisoner knows. Prisoners can give us information on how all the other ones think. So now we're just keeping them in there and they're doing nothing. It's of no use. Let the prisoners solve the cases. You know, I said to somebody the other day, I said, I've spoken to some of these prisoners. If you give them a case to solve, they solve it better than the police force. Why? Because they were doing it themselves. Inside the prison, You are solving cases and understanding the inconveniences that come with those cases. You are now dealing with the victims. The victim is coming in. You are counseling the victim. We are using our prison as a mechanism to rehabilitate our country. More important things about our judicial system. We must put our judicial system on a digital system, because many of the repeat offenders just continue doing the same thing. They come out, they continue. We are dealing with the same person. The government has spent 5 million rand in this person's lifetime dealing with them in prison. If you fix it in the first 6 months of prison, when he comes out, he'll never go back in there again. So lots of those issues to say, let our prisons really become cult-like organizations where the prisoner's coming out and is telling you the pillars of how our country has been built and how the rest of his life is going to serve his country. And you're wondering, hey, but where did this prisoner learn this? Because he knew that, hey, if I didn't know these things, I was not going to get cake in prison. I had to master the Constitution from head to toe, because that's what I was taught in prison. And immediately our prisons become places where rehabilitation really happens. But there's lots more ideas that I want to get to. It's just that time will not allow us.
No. It's fine. I actually want to move to another one, still in the same space, about crime prevention.
Okay.
Because crime, before it gets to prison, is committed in everyday life. And it's committed by people whom we saw when we were driving into this very office. So how do you address that? The crime prevention. There's theories of police presence and so forth and so forth. How do you apply in a scenario like that?
There was a study done in all the countries where they looked at career days, and young people that were in school on career day in other countries like Canada, in the US, a lot of them wanted to be policemen. Career day, the doctor would come. I deal with patients. This is what I do. The students are like, I aboralo. But the policeman is coming. The policeman says, I have a gun, but I use my gun responsibly. I'm going to shoot a bullet. All of you will stand outside and see. All the kids go around him and he does the thing and he shoots the bullet. And all those kids are like, wow. And then he comes and says, last night I rescued a family that was almost robbed. And they're all like, wow, this is Superman. Those kids from a young age grow up wanting to become policemen because they have a clear understanding that when you're a policeman, you're a superhero, you're a Superman. What do you want to be, young man? I want to be a policeman. Why? Because every career day, I look forward to seeing what the police do. And when you go and ask a policeman in Canada, how did you become a policeman? He says, from grade 2. There was a lady that walked in and said she's a policeman. And this is what she did. And from that, I grew up wanting. And you say to that person, but why won't you take a bribe? She says, from my whole life, I grew up believing that a policeman, in South Africa, career days, policemen are not going. Policemen in our country, they will say to you, I was going to be an accountant. I failed. Then my uncle paid a bribe for me to go to police school. How's this person going to stop crime? In their whole life, they've never dreamed of stopping crime. They fell into this thing. We need to start indoctrinating our young people from a young age. A policeman must go to schools and train people and show off what policemen do and tell the successful stories. Our young parents must start saying, hi man, all our kids want to be policemen. You should be a chartered accountant. Chartered accountant came to our school. There's nothing fun there. Mina, I want to rescue lives. And we've got this crop of young people that are growing up and every day they can just see themselves as policemen. Career day, they are wearing policemen. When I grow up, I want to be a policeman. This is what a policeman does. It's an indoctrination of the nation. And immediately we begin to see that our policemen become true crime fighters. The policemen we have, many of them, they found themselves there because they needed money. That person is not going to fight crime with a passion. The vigor and the gusto and the bravery is not there because when they were growing up, they didn't want to be a policeman. It just ended up with an uncle paying a bribe, and immediately we need to incubate our policemen from a young age. When you get to grade 10 already, there should be a stream saying all our policemen go to this university. When they get to this university, people must accuse us to say the state is occultic. Why are all the policemen so unbribable? All of them, they speak the same language, And it's because we've planned and we've created a force in this nation to say our policemen, we group them from a young age. To the point where when he's 28 and you're talking bribe, he's saying, no, I'm not going to betray the last 28 years of my life. And you look at him and you say, hey, Not these ones that they are now suggesting the bribe to you and you're now saying, where is this coming from? So there needs to be those programs, and they are there in all other countries. Children in other countries want to be policemen because they see the glory, they see the glamour, they hear the bravado stories, and we need to do the same indoctrination. It's that fireman indoctrination.
Yes. The American fireman.
You have programs on TV that show the best policemen. Hey, this policeman got in there, there were 12 guys, and then he did this, he did that. And now kids are now watching, I want to watch the show, And now everybody's saying, hey, our kids are now watching shows about policemen. Hey, our kids need to be lawyers. They're saying, we've never watched the show on a lawyer. I want to be a, it's that indoctrination that we put into the nation and ensure that every single person who's involved in these industries that are key is well indoctrinated from a very young age.
However, crime is done by you and I. Before the police comes, and let me complete my thought. Before the police comes, before the prison comes, a crime is committed at home by this guy who's beating up his wife. Crime is committed by this chap who's just deciding to use drugs or buy drugs or sell drugs, whatever crime they're committing. Crime is committed by a guy who decides to jump a fence because your car looks nicer or break your window because your radio looks nicer. Crime is done before the police appears, before the prison appears. How do we, and I can ask this question twofold, how do we prevent this guy from committing crime? That's the first thing. And how do we get to a point where the idea of crime is completely unattractive in a society where it has become the norm now? It's because the numbers tell us that. The numbers tell us that that's what we do now. We look for shortcuts and everything. You look for the easy way out of a situation that requires money or whatever it is. How do we get to that point as a society as a whole?
It's the NPA. In this country, and I think I want to correct something that you've said there because I've looked into crime and their thinking. Crime is done by intelligent people. And I think a lot of times people forget that an intelligent person knows that if the end of what I'm doing is prison, they wouldn't do it.
Okay.
So crime is done by people that already planned to say, the end of what I'm doing will not be prison. It might be a bribe. It might be this. And these people continue doing the crime because in their minds, they did it before, they did it last year, they did it again, and they weren't arrested. What will be different this time around?
Gotcha.
When they were doing in-depth interviews with criminals, they realized that a lot of them, it was a way of living because they did it once and they realized,
nothing happens to me.
Yeah, I didn't die,
yes.
And I said to somebody that in countries where crime is equivalent to death, people don't do it. Why? Because they realize that this thing is equivalent to death, right? I don't believe in the death penalty, but I believe in police having more power to be able to kill. So I'm different. I'm not saying kill every single person. I disagree. Or once this person is trial, kill them. No, I disagree. I'm saying when you get to a cash in transit heist, don't first ask, hey, who did the bomb? As the police force, it's a cash in transit heist. You've got intelligence that it's a cash in. When you get there, you start off by killing.
Let's reduce the level of the crime and make it a domestic violence.
Okay,
because where you placed us, we are bound to measure the crime. How bad is this crime?
Yeah, but my issue with the domestic violence one is that the domestic violence one is not. It's not. And the thing is, you want me to measure them, but I don't want to measure them. But
okay, which one deserves a shooting and which one doesn't?
Crimes. Okay, violent crimes, right? When a policeman gets to a cash in transit heist, and I've asked and I've watched videos about this, his first duty is to clear the crime scene. Even if somebody's leaving with a bag of money, he doesn't shoot because he says, what if it's the community? And he's been trained to say that the moment I shoot, somebody out there is going to say, you shot citizens. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, you are now arrested. Our police in our country are no longer killing criminals. They are more worried about the repercussions of shooting than they are about the crime. I'm saying, when the police get to trial, everybody should know that you stay away from a cash in transit heist. Because when the police arrive, their first order is to shoot everybody who's there. Go, 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 go. It's on video. The whole country sees the video. They're like, hey, banna. So if you rob cash in transit, you don't even get bail. They're like, I go right lane, let's strike. They now start to say, but how do we strike? Because this doesn't make sense. We're striking against what?
Against an illegal activity.
Yes. My daughter. No, let's stop.
These guys, when they arrive, you're saying equate crime to death.
Give the police a license to be able to kill when it comes to crimes of violence.
You will inherently end up in a situation where you'll be measuring in court.
No,
whether that killing was justified against the other killing.
We won't be measuring because it will be clear that this is a violent crime. I'll give you an example. Policemen often get to crime scenes where somebody has a gun, right? They have to wait till the person shoots before they shoot. And many of them would say, hey, we don't even want to shoot because the drama that comes with a policeman killing somebody is so strong. I'm saying, why wait until this person is in jail, out of bail, prosecution is not going to work? Why wait for all those things when violent crimes are happening? This is different from somebody saying someone stole a phone, somebody saying that, somebody stole a digging fork from your garden. That's not violent crime. I'm talking about places where guns are used. Police must kill. If the police find you with a gun, they'll kill you. That must be the mentality of criminals to say, hey, Baba, rather let's go do a hijacking, but let's rather use sticks, Baba, because if the police see a gun, and these days it's simpler. Police can work with, there's sensors now that can sense whether there's a gun in the perimeter. They get there. The moment the sensor picks up a gun, they know, okay, we're dealing with violent crime here, let's go.
We have other crimes, not violent crimes only.
Okay. Yeah.
We have a plethora of crazy crimes.
Yeah.
Including it's not violent in nature, but it ends up with a killing. That's one. Or it's rape. And we have staggering numbers of that in this country. And many other similar crimes. So what do we do in a case like that? How do you equate the crime to death in your concept?
Okay, interesting. So I've said to you that gender-based violence cases must be listed on a public blockchain. It's an argument that I've had with a lot of people to say, when you've committed a gender-based violent crime and you are a famous person, society will know and lynch you to the point of no return, meaning they might cancel you.
Or you lose your job and so forth.
Ubra Steven, he commits gender-based violence. He hits his wife at home.
He's not known.
Right? He's not known. All he'll get is the statement was written, the statement was withdrawn. That's it. If you know that any statement of gender-based crimes will be listed on a public blockchain, the repercussions of Stephen even doing it once, it's listed. Stephen does it twice, it's listed. Stephen does it 3 times, it's listed. When Stephen is now going out for lunch with a friend, and we're now seeing how, Mara Stephen, once you could say she was plotting something against you, twice, Baba, 3 times. And they're all describing the same things, although they were withdrawn, but they are there listed on the blockchain. The perpetrators can begin to be identified and society will begin to deal with them. Number one, and I think this is quite important because we forget the power that society has, right? We tend to think that society will ignore these things. No. Society will be the investigators. Society will begin to say, Stephen, why are you raising your voice? Because we know your history. We know you are listed on the list.
Sure.
Society will begin to watch over those things. So, and this I speak about gender-based violence specifically, right? Because it's a big crisis in our country. List it. Let it be public lynching. Let everybody who commits gender-based violence, let them be there. And let's also allow them to write their own story there. So, because men will say, but this is unfair. No, Baba. You'll write your own story there.
Because Stephen can be falsely accused.
Yeah. So Stephen will write there to say, guys, I was falsely accused. So that when he goes to the job interview, the people can see that, okay, he was listed, but he was falsely accused. Okay, that makes sense.
But then it takes the judicial system out of the system. It gives the society more justice in that context.
No, there'll still be a judgment from the judicial system.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is the reports happen and they are withdrawn or nothing happens. I'm saying let the reports be an online process. So that Judy, when she goes to report it, it will automatically list him to say, this guy. It saves us so much time because when a woman dates a man, she's able to say, instead of her going through the trauma of being this man, because many of the people that have been offended or that have experienced gender based violence will tell you to say, he wasn't like this. 3 months in, he started to hit me while I was already hooked. Before she even goes there, she can check and say, there were 9 women who reported him. She can even call them and say, the person I'm falling in love with, you reported him. What's the story? You know, it's to say that we're dealing with a non-normal situation and we need to use non-normal methods, right? And yes, some people will be listed incorrectly. They'll have a chance to go to court, and when they go to court, we'll write there to say that this went to trial and it was found that it is not true. The same way we do with your credit score.
It's not public though.
Look, it's public for those that are dealing with you. I mean, on a blockchain, not everybody knows who has the Bitcoins, right? But somebody who's looking will be able to find.
Somebody's looking for your information.
Yeah, the same way if I want to check your credit score, I'll obviously look for your ID and whatever, yeah. So we'll have those things in there to say, let the person have your ID.
Okay, I get it. Manufacturing. We've come a long way as a country. At some point, we were quite a big player in that space, to a point where even now, you go to Utenake, a VW is manufactured, and so forth and so forth. You find a lot of sectors within our country. There's been a lot of effort by the current government to create these business units within. I call them units. I'm sure they use bigger words than that within society, where you find in Tshwane, in a specific area, it's automotive sector, and so forth and so forth. What has happened to that in your observation? And how do we bring it back if we've lost it completely?
Look, I think with manufacturing, for me, it's a no-brainer because we have the natural resources. And I think a lot of the times people like to come up with technical issues. I've heard people say, hey, we don't have the skill, we don't have the know-how. There's 3D printing. What is 3D printing? It means this is a machine that can basically take the mineral resources needed and create the final good, right? So there's so much technology that the question of can we do it or can we not do it based on skills development is no longer a question.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah, it's a non-factor now, right? Yeah. We need an agenda, right? You look at countries that have done well in terms of manufacturing. They had an agenda. I remember many years ago, I went through the Progressive Business Forum. I went to China, where we were hosted by politicians in China and businessmen in China. And I remember we were sitting at dinner in China and this kid says to me, he's like, can you build me a factory in South Africa? I said, oh, that's beautiful. He said, no. It's not a factory where you'll create the finished good. America has put quotas on how much we can export to them. But we realized that they only put the quotas on China. They didn't put the quotas on South Africa. Can we manufacture in China, send it to the warehouse in South Africa, then you
send it to
America.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I said, this doesn't make sense. And I dug in deeper to say, okay, why did America put the quotas? And he said to me, because all of us, basically every bed in America was made in China. And America's saying, nope, they want their own beds made there. And I thought, okay, a quota. Okay, this is interesting words. You were still learning about how global economics works. Quotas in South Africa. Aziko. Nothing. There's no quota. You can just do whatever you want. Import however much you want. You can just, there's quotas in the poultry industry, but even there, many of them say, the quotas are not efficient. We need to manage the quota process to say, right, you can import this many toothpicks, but no more than this. And then people say, but where will you get toothpicks? Oh, create them. But why do America created quotas for China? We need quotas to protect our manufacturers. Second, we also need the country to have an agenda. China planned the manufacturing agenda. They built rails. They did this. They sent out researchers. Why? Because it was a planned agenda to say, we want to manufacture and solve the world. What they didn't plan for was the quotas, but they planned the agenda. We need an agenda to say, what are we manufacturing that the rest of the world will buy from us? Very important.
Why do you think something as obvious as what you're saying now is not implemented now? Or it hasn't been implemented since the dawn of democracy?
The politicians we have are really not smart. Yeah. I am always shocked that people find that I am smart, right? Because the rooms that I always put myself in, I always put myself in rooms where I say, I need to level up, When I sit with government advisory, and I've advised many governments, the Namibian government, I've advised South African government, I find that the government is just, they're not smart. I don't know. It's like people want us to write it down on a piece of paper and hold it up. They're not smart.
But they use people like yourselves as in different commissions. So are you saying they take what you give them and still not use?
What I give them, they will not understand.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't.
Is that what happened with the Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission?
It is. You get to these ministers, you get to these MECs, and they're just like, lente khuluma yesayizwa kodwa ama toilets nama RDP. And you can see that it's an understanding issue to say the people that people voted for, they don't get it.
Yeah. Let's move to the next one. I'm wrapping up these and we'll go somewhere else. Infrastructure.
I thought it was the last one.
No, infrastructure. And I'm following your book, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
This is the sequence.
I know. I'm just like, whoa. Okay,
infrastructure.
Yeah.
No, infrastructure challenges. We know them well. You and I live in a city now where water is scarce.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parts of the country have experienced this before. We were talking about drinking tap water now, which is something that we have to discuss. So those are some of the challenges, the roads and let's not go to electricity. We've already touched on that. Infrastructure in South Africa is a challenge. I was watching a Carte Blanche episode on Buffalo City where, stadiums that used to stand well and now they are in disarray. Without asking where the problems are, I think the problems are pretty obvious to a lot of people. How do you solve them when you walk into a scenario where the infrastructure is all completely destroyed?
Look, I think it's also important for us to sort of realize that the infrastructure problem that we've got it's a man-made problem. Because I think sometimes people have sort of believed that there's not enough for us all. And that's a lie. South Africans have listened to lies so many times, they started to believe them. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, maybe we're too many, and I said, no, that's a lie. We have more than enough. So let's start there. But let's move on to understanding exactly what happened with the infrastructure.
Okay.
There are budgets that are put in infrastructure, billions every single year. Infrastructure in this country, a lot of it is looted. Give you an example. We lose 60% of the water that we get in this country in the infrastructure. So water leaves the Val Dam, goes to a treatment area, and it's supposed to come to the houses. Along the way, the valve is leaking. The pipes that were used are leaking. The pipes that were used were the cheaper pipes. The pipes that were used were broken. Only 40% of the water gets to the houses. 60% is lost because of the infrastructure. So the materials, the way that they build, the tender system, we lose a lot in terms of infrastructure. The second thing, the infrastructure that exists has not been developed or maintained properly. I don't know. I've often asked to say the industry of town planning. We've got engineers that are educated. These people must be employed in municipalities. We need people that have got the know-how to fix these sort of things. So the infrastructure issues has always been issues of looting, incompetence, and just people on a general not understanding how to use the infrastructure. Our water treatment services in South Africa, they were assessed recently and only 3% of our water treatment facilities passed. 97% failed according to international standards. So that means that the people that are at the water treatment stations, they're just there for vibes. That's why we are seeing cholera outbreaks. So a lot of the infrastructure issues that we've got, it's clearly because the money that flows is flowing through corrupt hands, and we're expecting something to change, and it's just not changing.
Yeah.
Then maybe to the last point is to say new cities. Very important. We need to build new cities. We can't expect the infrastructure that exists to work and be sufficient for all of us. We need new cities.
Do we anticipate a city? I'll give it a name because it's my show. New Johannesburg. Is that even a possibility?
Definitely. New
So
cities
it's
are definitely
brand new and it's the people that historically would have been in Johannesburg.
And you know what's painful? What's painful is that there have been people that said we want to build cities in Africa. The issue is that the government, but man, new city, asinike 30% lana. These are guys who were investors.
It's black economic empowerment.
No. It's not black economic empowerment. It is ANC elite empowerment. Because if you are calling it black economic empowerment, can we see the black people that have been empowered? We can see the ANC elite.
Ramaphosa being a perfect example of black economic empowerment.
That's one or two. Does Ramaphosa represent the black population?
He's black.
Yeah, but it's just one person.
I'm sure there's many, but we're using one example.
They're not many, and we need to be honest about it. To say black economic empowerment is ANC's way of taking what belongs to the majority and keeping it for themselves.
I'll throw forward to another that we're going to talk about education in South Africa. What are the most pressing issues?
We need to fix our whole education system.
Are you saying it's
all of it?
It's a mess.
Mess, yeah. All of it. Our education system is designed for us to be administrators and not to be owners. It's like the apartheid regime designed an education system that will never allow people to take what is rightfully theirs.
Yeah.
We are taught to administer. We are taught to work for. We are taught to build for other nations. We are not taught to own, to nurture, and to develop. We need to take away that and realize that the enemy wants us to work for them, and realize that we need to teach young people. You know, I always say to people that it's in the coloring books, it's in the story books. Nancy works as a nurse. Why can't Nancy be the owner of the hospital?
In the coloring book.
Hospital. Yeah, in the coloring book. Nancy is employed at a hospital. Aibo, umntwana say color already is being told that yay, Nancy
is a worker.
And I'm like, no, let's begin to change this. Nancy owns 10 hospitals.
Yeah.
The kid is now coloring. The kid must ask the parents, why don't you own a hospital? Nancy owns a hospital. You know? So
you're putting pressure on the poor parents.
Putting pressure, yeah. And also just empowering the successful stories. You know, I often say to people that one of the things that we must do in South Africa is we must change the media. We don't tell enough empowering stories. We don't. And we need to start telling. And this is why I appreciate spaces like yours. You know, I often say to people that when I'm in government, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down with podcasters and say, all of you come. You are now a propaganda machine for South Africa.
You got to vote, Clark, for me.
Yeah. And the propaganda that you're pushing is very special. Because what I'm saying to you is, instead of getting the girl that's twerking on your podcast, I know she'll give you views. We'll pay for the views. Get the young man who's now a neuroscientist. Get him to come and talk about the journey. And you say, man, government, this thing will not trend. Hey, the twerker, everybody wants to watch it. And we say, no, we'll pay. We'll pay. Let's get, and we call Google to the map and say, Google, TikTok, America has already banned you. If this video of this neuroscience guy does not trend, nothing artists on ban. Because only the twerking is trending. And they say, hey, sorry.
They don't know, they don't control, well, we suppose they don't control the algorithm.
America and China are controlling the algorithm. And they say, hey, we're so sorry, we don't want to be banned. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Just boost this neuro. And everybody's saying, yo, hi man, everybody's McG. This neuroscience went to McG, went to David, went to Penwell, went to this. And everybody's saying, yeah, man. Hi man, Nami, maybe, I need to start leveling up in life.
Are you saying...
And the twerker is now saying,
Yeah.
Hi, bo, I'm not getting any views. Hi, man, David, can you have me on your show? And you're saying, no, we don't do any twerking.
We don't do twerking. We don't do twerking here anyway. But we already don't do twerking.
But we formulate this agenda together.
Yeah.
And immediately everybody's now watching South African content and it's leveling all of us up. Everybody's now saying, okay, but the cities want to eat twerking, but I eat twerking. You have to go through a VPN. Now, one of the things I'll do in this country is ban pornography. I've been to Dubai. Dubai pornography is banned. Tried to
log into
and I said to somebody, how much is it to ban pornography? They said, it's so cheap. Less than 10 million, you can ban this thing. I said, how? So why aren't we banning it? They said, well, Vodacom and MTN, that's where they make their profit.
That's
and
it.
I said, we're going to ban this thing. Some of the programs...
Are you saying you're going to ban porn?
Of course, yeah. Pornography will be banned.
What else are you going to ban?
HIV, GBV. I mean, these cases alone. Pornography reduces these cases. Anybody who's saying keep pornography, you're basically saying GBV, rape, HIV, STDs. You're basically saying let them continue. If there's scientific fact that shows that pornography reduces these things.
Lack of pornography.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why are we stopping?
Okay. What else are you likely to ban?
Look, I've already said tenders at ESCOM.
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to go out. Look, the leadership style is not in banning because I also need people to understand that it's not in the rules. It's in the agenda. Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to ban things, you just need to make them unfashionable. Yeah. I mean, you ensure that the girl who is twerking for a living and driving that narrative, you ensure that the media removes her attention and gives the attention to the girl who's the new doctor who's found the cure for cancer.
I got you.
And that girl says, if no one is going to give me my followers because I'm not twerking, let me find the cure for HIV. Because that's who they're only interviewing. And that girl begins, you just move, you play with the agenda in such a way that the agenda must prosper the people in the country. Because these things are agenda.
True. At their heart. What is your ultimate ambition? Because you're a young man. Politics was not on your mind 5 years ago. And now it's front and center. What is your agenda as Mpho?
Look, so my ultimate, I always said to people, I said, by the age of 40, and I'm 30 now, and I actually used to say sooner, but I think now I'm saying 40. I must go back to saying 35, these long targets. I want to buy a tent.
Okay.
A big tent. And travel all around Africa teaching. You know these big evangelists that you see, Bo Benny Hinn, Bo Pastor Chris, I want to do that, but I'm not teaching miracles, I'm not teaching healing.
You're not, yeah.
I'm teaching African.
You're not waking the dead.
I'm teaching what it means to be an African. I'm redefining what it means to be an African. And I've got a tent. And I'm in Rwanda. And I'm in Ghana. And people are saying, you can't go to the Congo. They're killing people. And I'm saying, we're going there. And I've got a team of people. And everybody's saying, come to the big tent where this man is speaking. And I'm opening up the scriptures and I'm saying, Africa is the richest continent in the world. And somebody's in the back saying, amen. And I'm saying, if we can. And I'm moving, teaching the minds of Africans what they should be. For me, that would be, that's what I want to do. That would be so pleasing to know that we heard, and I've heard other people talk about it. I mean, Abu Rale Kholela, who went out with a tent. And their message was that Jesus saves. Stop drinking, stop smoking, get married, get into church, start focusing, Jesus saves, And I look at those men and I'm like, they did their work. And my work is to get my tent and preach that Africa, you are the richest country in the world.
Yeah.
You are the best.
And along the way to the tent, what stops do you want to make as part of your ambition?
I must touch every African country. And for me, I want the most dangerous places. One of my things that I said I want to do is the DRC Congo. I want to fix Congo. Yeah. Congo. Zimbabwe. Yeah, my tent must be everywhere in Zimbabwe. Yes. You must be hearing stories about, the man with the tent came in and he told us that we can do this and that and the other.
And we did.
And I have a whole team,
Yeah.
I said to somebody that a lot of people talk about deliverance and they get there and they say, these demons are coming out of people. And I said, the poverty will be leaving people's minds. That's my demon. I'm dealing with the demon of poverty. Wherever I go, people are saying, hey, President, when I came to your tent, I used to think I will die poor. Now that I've come, I'm going to own the biggest company in the world. And people are clapping and saying, it's a miracle. We have a miracle over there. That guy is saying that it's going to change life. This guy is saying and everybody's saying miracles. Everybody's rich, And I move with that agenda, and I go to these places where I see there's injustices. I just go, I'm coming with my tent. I'm a preacher. If you want to fight me, you can't fight me, because all I'm doing is I've got a pulpit. And what are we preaching? We are preaching the gospel of Africa. To say, this is and people must hear me and hear me well. I've spoken to God. This is the best country in the world. It's the best continent in the world. And if anybody is saying anything different, go and speak to God. Maybe he'll give you something. But I've spoken to God about it. So this gospel must be preached to say, Africa, you are the global superpower. Everything will come from you. Everything that the world will see must come from you. You are the way to design how the world should work. You are the way that the world should look at and say, I want to be like Africa. And I've listened to the great prophets of old. I've listened to people like N.J. Sutole who have prophesied of the day where Africa will begin to. And I said, that's my calling. And along that journey of my calling, I will start with South Africa, prove that when it's done, my tent is leaving now. I'm now moving over. I'm now in Algeria. I'm now in Sudan. You are hearing me say, hey, here they've blocked roads. They say they don't want to hear this gospel. I'm busy telling people that they can become billionaires in Africa. They are calling me a con man. And, people must be there in that tent saying, when I arrived here, I was just going to die a poor farm worker. Now I'm going to be a farm owner. Nothing will stop me. And people will say, what is this man teaching these people,
I get it. You get so excited when you talk about the tent.
I do, yeah. The tent. And I will live in that tent, And for me, it will be a place. We will sing songs about Africa. We will redefine what it is that is this high calling that people talk about. You. And in that process, I think a lot of these guys that have come in and given doctrines to Africans that don't make sense, they'll just have to fall away. They'll have to fall away. I'll be teaching people like, you don't need a pastor to pray for you. You're African. God lives inside of you. And they'll be saying, where? And I'll say, look, even the scriptures prove it. And people will be saying, huh? So we don't need a pastor to go in and say, you don't need holy water. You don't need this. And people will be saying, how? But we thought, so it's a new doctrine that many might not receive. Some might argue with, some might find it to be problematic.
Of course.
But I'll preach it. And for me, I'm not afraid of death. Let some wicked person shoot me on stage while I'm in the tent, preaching that truth to say, in the DRC, we will not continue supporting Apple stealing the minerals. And they are saying, who's this man? And I'm saying, listen, DRC, you are the reason why everybody's able to do their work. The fact that we're shooting this podcast and they're going to edit it on an Apple machine, it means that proceeds must come to the DRC. And they're saying, what do you mean? And I say, all of you are shareholders of Apple. And they're saying, hey. And we're saying we're blocking. And for me, that's the joy to say, let's start a revolution where Africans are rich, because it is what it is. We are. So that's really what I would like to be doing. And if I can do that until the day when I'm done, I don't think I'm going to die. I don't see myself in a coffin. I think I'll levitate. I'll leave this world like those that levitate. And I'll just, one day levitate, because I believe that I would have touched so many hearts that it will be that time to say, this man has done his work. He's achieved his work.
What happens between now and 10 years from now in terms of your life and your career? You go into elections, you become president. It's a different story. We'll deal with that. You go to the elections, you don't become president. How do you continue? What else do you think of doing?
Look, I think for me, and this is the important thing that people need to realize, is that the agenda will continue. Arise is not a vision that is just made for government. Arise is a vision of the country. To say the country, Africa, South Africa, has a place it needs to get to. And that's the vision, and to say, look, the government would be the easiest way for us to fast track that vision. And we hope that people vote so that the vision can get there faster. But if we're not in government, the vision continues. For me, it's never really been about, I'll be in the union building sitting. No, it's been about the vision of what Africa can become. And for me, it's to say, let that vision become a reality. So the tent has nothing to do. The tent will still continue.
Irrespective.
Yeah, irrespective. No, the tent must continue.
You were not in politics a few years ago. What sparked that? What made you, what happened the morning you woke up and say, I need to do this?
Look, I think I had been running away from this calling of politics, and I had entered fields where I was just surviving and helping other people get involved in things. And I think a lot of it was just me trying to try and fill my life with all the busyness, so that I don't get to this part, because it was always a thing of, politics, what will people say? How does it work? Am I, I don't speak like them. I can't get there and make the crowd dance. I don't, I thought, this is not for me. So
Shiniwam. You can do that.
I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm willing to learn. And for me, it was always to say, let me be a businessman and give away money. And that's what I did. There are churches that I planted. There are businesses that I started for people. Most of the money that I made, I just gave it away because I thought, okay, let my calling be to do that. Until I realized that the people I was giving the money to were sort of not doing the right thing. You'd give 500,000 to a pastor and say, look, start outreaches in communities, and tomorrow you're seeing with a new car. And I'm like, how?
It's an outreach.
Mfundisi, what happened?
How do I get to the outreach? I need a car.
So it was all these nuances that I realized to say, okay, you know what? Let me start. And I think the beauty of having started is that many other people are standing up to say, okay, we are also here. We are also here. We are also here. We are also here. And it's a whole national revival. A lot of people are saying, we didn't think it's possible. You are showing us that it can be done. Let's start. Let's do it.
What would you measure as success in these elections for Arise South Africa?
For me, it's to say that we want to change the way politics is done. Yeah, I think that's important.
But practically, how would you say we've done well?
So I said to somebody that I've looked at the way that rallies are done. They pass people down, give them T-shirts, get them to sing songs.
Plate of food.
I've looked at the way politics is done. And I've looked at it and I've thought, there's a better way. There's a better way. I said to somebody the other day, and I said, it's interesting to see that in America, people donate to politicians so much. All right. In Africa, nobody gives the followers of the politicians, they don't give the politicians money.
No.
Yeah. And I said, that should tell politicians something. That if your own people can't fund you, there's an issue, I recently made an example with what Julius Malema said, where he said when he started his party, for him to pay for the elections, he had to go to the white family Mazotis to give him the money, And I said, when I had to pay for the elections, I went to Facebook. And I said, Facebook, let's pay the money. And Facebook said, hey, we're paying,
How much did you raise from Facebook?
750,000.
What? It's a lot.
And I mean, immediately after I saw that, I saw other, podcasts started to try, hey, we want to run. I said, hey, let them try. Let's see what will happen. And I said to them that for me, if your people cannot fund the vision with the monies that they've got, it means that there really isn't a vision. Yeah, there really isn't a vision. You just have a crowd that you're pulling, Politicians have to pay for buses to get people to come. Politicians have to pay for things. There's never been a political party that starts a march and people attend themselves. Those buses are funded. They are paid 150s. Hey, come, sing, shout, say this, say that, say this, And I said, I would have failed if that's what I start. I'm not looking for people that are going to come and join me and say, yeah, give us money so we can come and shout with you. No, I'm looking for people that are saying, we see the vision. we're coming to build.
Yeah.
Because if the vision of the political party is strong enough, the people will come and build. I saw it with Arise. We were at a point where we were looking at everybody who was funded by the Oppenheimers, funded by the Ruperts, funded by these ones, and we were like, hey, we are not funded. And
aren't you jealous, Nyana, Mar, that maybe you wish you had your own, and I use the word jealous, the strong word probably, your own funder that didn't ask you much. They just believed in your vision enough to say, go run with it, my son.
Look, I think I would be jealous if the people were not there.
Okay.
Right.
The supporters.
Yeah. I would be jealous if the supporters were not there. One of the things that I've looked at is you look at these funded political parties, right? Let's take, for example, Rise Mzansi, right? They've received 15 million rand, right? Every interview that they do, the views are less than 5,000. I do one interview, not funded. The views are 250,000, 250,000.
Let me say this already. We will be speaking to the leader of Rise Mzansi.
Yeah. And
we'll see what happens.
You can look at the views. Perfect.
Yes, we'll see what happens.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you look at the supporters that they've got, and you look at, have they raised money amongst their people? You look at their bank account. It's only money from Oppenheimer. That's it. And they come out and they will say, what were we supposed to do? Nobody was willing to fund us. You listen to them speak and you can tell that, this man is reading a speech. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, do you write speeches when you come for interviews? I said, no, I don't. Before I came to this interview, I was busy working and that's it. I've just got my iPad here to make sure that if there's a number I need to mention, it's there. But that's it. I speak from the heart, right? For me, I found that when you are funded, you can't... This fire that people are seeing would not be there. Because when I leave here, I'm going to go and say, my funder, did I perform well if I was funded? But when I leave here, I'm like, did I tell the truth? That's it. I look myself in the mirror and I'm like, the Arise leaders, did I tell the truth?
Yeah.
And even the leaders themselves that are part of Arise, because we've got lots of leaders, they'll check me and they'll say, oh, President, what about this? What about this? I don't have to leave here thinking, land, what will that one think? Oh, this funder. And I've realized that many of them, when they speak, you can tell that this person is not speaking from their heart. They are speaking from their funders and their donors. I would rather do this.
Yeah. Is Arise a full-time gig for you now?
It is.
It's what you do.
Arise is consumed. Yeah, it's consumed everything about me, and I think I'm privileged in the fact that I've been able to grow businesses to a point where I'm able to survive on my own. I don't live a very expensive life.
You're not a fancy guy.
Yeah, I'm a very simple guy.
Yeah.
I said to somebody the other day.
Yeah, I can see our karma. You're a simple guy.
No, but maybe to explain the nuances, I said to somebody the other day, I said, there's certain things that I really don't care about. I mean, like what car I drive. I don't eat lunches that cost. Somebody said to me that, oh, President, you eat skaftin. You don't go to. I'm like, yeah, I'm against skaftin. So I'm a very simple guy. For me, those things don't matter. Yeah. For me, it's about the impact. It's about the lives. Now, how many lives did I change in that tent?
And do you feel the investment and time investment that you're putting in is worth it, irrespective of the end results?
It is. Yeah. Very fulfilling. Yeah. Very fulfilling. I've never been more willing to give of my time than this. Because when you work on something, you're working for money. You limit your time, you limit this and that because you're thinking, hey, I'm overexerting myself just for money. I've got enough. And here I'm changing lives. The mentalities are changing. And for me, the interesting thing that I've realized, and I think a lot of the people that have come against me or tried to attack me, a lot of them are EFF members.
Why do you think that is? Before you go to the reason, why do you think that is?
Oh, because I think a lot of them still have that thinking of they associate Arise with Rise Mzansi and they think that we are funded by the Oppenheimers. A lot of them come from there.
Got you. Sorry, complete your thought.
But in a lot of them coming in with that attitude of they are against, when they now listen to what I'm saying, at the end of the interview, they're like, yeah, but if you can prove that you are not funded by the Oppenheimers, we'll vote for you. You know, and I love that moment at the end because I'm like, okay, you know, we're making progress.
It's not
here,
a big hurdle to jump.
Yeah,
this.
we're making progress. I mean, this is somebody who came saying, hey, I will never. But at the end, they're like, yeah, man. Yeah, he must just prove that he's not funded by them. Yeah, if he can prove it, yeah, we'll vote. And for me, it's been so fulfilling because I think a lot of our people have been limited when it comes to options.
Yeah.
And the more we open up these options, the more we treat the political sphere to say, hey, you are not God. You don't say and people must follow forever. People must have options.
What do you say to a critic or an analyst that says the landscape of politics is designed, and I'll tell you the design, to reduce the power of the ANC by creating many other small parties? So the ANC will squirm and want power from somewhere else and do, so they are weaker. And when they are weaker, they go in with one of their funded parties into this coalition. And now they can indirectly control what happens within the ANC. Or a different perspective that says we reduce the power of the ANC, create smaller parties, so those smaller parties can come together and create a new government without the ANC, so we can control that new government. What do you say to that type of analysis?
Look, I've heard of it. I've heard that there are political parties that are funded by the ANC to try and, after elections, these political parties have to vote with the ANC because they were funded by the ANC. One of them is Shiluba. I heard this from somebody who used to be the national chairperson of Shiluba. And I said, why did you leave? And he said, I left because I realized that this political party is funded by the ANC. And I had to leave, you know. So I'm just saying that so people know where I got the information from. And my questions or my submissions to that is to say, let's wait for after elections. If a party like Shiluba or any other that people are saying are funded by the ANC, if they vote with the ANC, then we can see, or if they go into coalition, then we can say,
But it may not necessarily
there's
be.
something here. It might not necessarily be, but
Yes.
I'm saying we'll see, right? To say, we'll see. That's the first thing. But the second thing that South Africans have got is South Africans have got a very discerning heart. And I love that. South Africans know when you are lying and when you are telling the truth. I don't know. I've never seen it in another nation. South Africans are very discerning, you know. And for me, it's to say when South Africans vote, let's let that discernment come out. If you're uncomfortable with a political party, or you can tell that in my heart of hearts, here I'm not. Why are you voting for that party? You know? So South Africans are very discerning. And I love that, to say, even the questions and the things that people have said to me, you know, South Africans have said to me things that I thought, hey, but these guys are right. There was another guy who sent me a long message and he said, my brother, you have so much talent and wisdom. Leave politics. Start an NGO. And he said, I'll even find you funders who will fund the NGO, because in politics, the guys you're going to will not listen to you, you know. And he wrote me this very long email and even gave me a call. And I listened to him and I said, is this what South Africans think of me? That this guy, man, we're taking him to parliament where they're going to be fighting. He has all these ideas of building a new city. They're going to look at him and say, let's continue the fight, you know. And I thought, it's a good thing that South Africans are starting to analyze their leaders. You know, I want to hear what people are saying. You know, I want South Africans to analyze, because when they do that, then we get into more of who are you voting for and what are you basing it on. We must stop voting based on just the words. South Africans are spiritual people. We must also vote with our spirit man, with our conscience, to say, is this right? You know, how will the end of this be? You know, and the more we do that, I think the more we'll see that the right political parties will begin to take shape and the wrong ones will lose votes.
Where are you from?
I'm from Limpopo.
Which part of Limpopo? Venda.
Lutregat, yeah, Venda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go Venda in a true sense, as in you still visit home often.
Of course, yeah. Of
Who's
course.
left? Who's home now?
My brother's home. My parents are home as well. My grandparents are home. Yeah. I think in Venda, the Dagada surname is a well-known surname. But I've realized outside of Venda, it's not as well known. One of my granddads, he is the founder of Worship House. and they have a lot of albums. So a lot of people know them. But I've realized that many of the other cultural groups don't know about it.
Yes. Are you? Is this new journey of yours? Is it well supported by the family back home?
I think the first instance was fear to say, this is risky and too bold. I've had calls from many of them saying, "Hey, are you not too bold? Are you not afraid? Are you not, somebody called me the other day, they said, "Hey, Baba, we've never seen your family name under a billionaire tender or anything like that. How are you going to survive? How are you going to..." So a lot of those questions have come.
True.
Look, I think for me, the thing that I always say is that you don't go into politics because of family. That would be wrong, because that means that I'm my family's hired gun. You go in politics because of the country.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the important thing.
And you're happy with where things are for you.
Yeah, I think I'm very, very happy. Could be happier. I mean, we could be happier.
Is there growth, a rise?
Oh, definitely, yeah. The Arise there's lots of growth in Arise. We've merged with other parties as well. They've come to join us. The growth has truly been phenomenal. Look, I've got two concerns. One concern is that these guys might arrest me. I think that's the first concern.
Who are these guys?
Look, I think the status quo in South Africa is when you've got a problem, you either kill or you arrest.
Okay.
Right? I think killing me might be different, because I think that they've been some attempts, but I think firstly God is definitely protecting me. But I think it's also important to realize that I'm not somebody who can just be killed just like that, But I think the second one is the arrest one. And maybe let me go into more details to say, when you look at political leaders all around Africa that start a regime and come against people, you look at Zim, many of them were arrested. You look at the ANC government, the way they are so friends with Zim and everything. I find that one person might just pick up a case and say, "Hey, we found his fingerprints. Marangen."
But they will have no reason to arrest you if there's no reason to arrest you.
That's what we said about the political leaders in Tanzania.
But we're here in
Rwanda.
South Africa. We don't have a reference of that type of behavior.
Because nobody has ever spoken the way that I speak.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember, many of the politicians in this country are funded. Yeah, they don't speak the way that I speak. Yeah. And what I mean is they don't always tell the truth the way that it is. Yeah. For me, I don't have that. For me, it's the truth.
Do you genuinely feel like you're threatened or you're threatening?
Look, I mean, there's some stuff that I've said that people have come back to me and said, "Hey, you must watch out what you're saying," I think the issue with the truth is once you follow the truth, you realize it's the truth. And I think that's their issue. Their issue is that they realize that people will dig into these things and they'll realize that he was telling the truth and they'll believe it.
Like they're hiding the money with the kettles, for example.
Yeah, many things for example, people didn't know that the ANC is a company that's literally getting tenders from Eskom. Yeah, they probably didn't know that. I did a video on TikTok. I think it reached 1 million views.
Yeah.
And people, all of a sudden, ANC members were now asking branch meetings, we want to ask, is it true? And people were saying, how? We won't allow this kid to run ANC meetings like this, Because people were asking in meetings to say, if we're an ANC member and the ANC owns this company, how are we not knowing about the financials? Why are we hearing it from some kid on TikTok?
Yes. How do you find information like that?
I read. Yeah. So I've authored 2 books. And I think my book story is amazing. I met a publisher and, she's about 60-something years old, and she welcomed me into this world I didn't know existed of books. And her name is Bridget Mpho. She runs Jekana Media, and I could say that we fell in love. So whenever we meet,
published this one.
Yeah,
well.
she but I self-published that one.
Okay.
But through her guidance. So whenever we meet, we talk about books, and I'll never forget one thing she said to me. She said there was an experiment done on 2 different streets. The one street, they dropped off a book a week, right? The other street, they did nothing. For about, I think she said 6 months. I'll have to just check. When they came back to check, the street where they dropped off books every week was richer, wealthier, had moved into new suburbs, functional. The streets where they didn't drop off books was the same, if not worse.
Mm.
And she said to me, this is the power of books. And I started reading books and I started engaging with books. And I mean, I read a lot. Every day I read a lot. So I think for me, those are some of the things that I've taken in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited by your energy, and I certainly hope you get the votes you deserve. I worry about young people generally. I hang out with young people here a lot because of the type of work I do, and politics are not top of mind. And you know this.
Sure.
Yeah, you know this very well. And I certainly hope that your efforts, try to change that as well in some small way or in a big way, because they form a huge, you probably know the percentage of young people in South Africa could easily vote for you. It's a huge percentage, over 40%. So we wait for those votes, because I would hate to see another election where young people couldn't wait for that day because it's a holiday, or they couldn't wait for that day to end because it was so quiet. I'd rather have them participate in politics today. And you are clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your target audience is young people.
Look,
predominantly.
Predominantly, but I'm fighting for the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are the future.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we certainly hope they come in numbers.
No, thank you so much. And I think thank you so much for having this podcast. And it is my desire that a lot of people get to understand things about this industry that I've come to learn. One of the things that viewers must understand is that the only way this grows is by you sharing it. And I find that a lot of times when people hear people say subscribe, like, they think it's nuances. No, guys, the only way that this platform grows, you like it, you share it, that's the only way that it grows. So I think it's important that
you
every
engage.
person, you engage.
Yes.
So let me see your comments. I'll make sure that I come back and I comment as
Please.
well. So I'll comment on everybody's comment.
Yeah.
And let's ensure that we engage. Let's ensure that we share this. And let's ensure that we make sure that these sort of platforms grow. Because I think the work that you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that it definitely needs to continue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I wish you well. I can't wait to see the elections, and I can't wait to see your name in Parliament.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You'll be honorable. We really hope young people go out and vote.
Yeah.
Honorable Mpho Dagada. Oh, listen, does that ring nice in your head?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's been fun. Thank you. I've enjoyed every minute.
Wow. Thank you so much. Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank
there you have it. So let's say it together. Like and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe. This interview.
Thank you. There you have it. I appreciate it. If you watch this for this long, which is about exactly 3 hours, actually, if you watch this long, you might as well subscribe. Thank you.
King David Studio Podcast.